What up, Katie? Good morning, Katie. Hit that like button. My man. Ugh. Mm. Have a good day in school, Katie. Have a good day in school. It will be. Tired. It's okay. Yeah. Ugh. Oh, shit. Mm. Mm. Lights up. Mm. Saying get the lights up for me. Come on, baby. Let's go. What's up? Good morning, y'all. Get the likes up for me, y'all. Everybody hit the like at one time. Please hit the like at one time. Come on, y'all. Give me a couple likes. Mm. Good morning. Glitter gang can't get no likes from nobody, man. That's crazy. Y'all gonna do me like this early in the morning. Glitter gang can't get no likes. Y'all gonna do me like this early in the morning, huh? No likes, no subs, no likes, no nothing. It's all good. No subs, no like, no nothing, huh? What happened? 1.5. That's crazy. Let's see what I do. Get them likes up for me. Get them likes up. What up? Good morning, LaMelo Ball. Good morning, player. Good morning. Good morning, player. Good morning. Good morning, player. Get them likes up. Get them likes up. Get them likes up. Get them likes up. Let's go. Get them likes up. Get them likes up. That was a good morning stream. The sleep stream was last night. Good morning. He did not just sleep this shit again. Good morning. What y'all got planned for today? What y'all got planned for today? What y'all got planned for tonight today? What y'all got planned for tonight? What everybody got planned for today? What everybody got planned for today? What y'all got planned for today? Glitter gang. Glitter gang. Get them likes up. 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 Let's go. Doing all that. Get them likes up. Get them likes up. Get them likes up. Ugh. Get them likes up. Get them likes up. Get them likes up, baby. I don't give a fuck if you did, homeboy. How about that? Jason, I don't give a fuck if you did. Seen a video of me drinking and driving. How about that? Y'all get off my dick. That's what y'all do. Get off my dick. Yes. I don't care. I don't care what you used to be. If you better chill out, or you're gonna end up like your boy Kai. Yeah. Yeah, it's like that. Do you want to stay in here or you want to get timed out? What you want to do? What you want to do, Playboy? Hmm? Tell me what you want to do. All right, you'll get it. It's coming.
Trump. The WWE roster is split between two shows, Raw and SmackDown.
My husband used to ejaculate prematurely until this.
You know you don't have to come all the way to the pharmacy to get prescription. For much more on these, as you see here, Ohio State #1. Penn State comes in #2. LSU, they finally got a win in their season opener. Win at #3, but hello, Miami entering the top 5. For much more on this, let's go ahead and welcome in Arnold David Canal and Brandon Marcello. Guys, we'll get to Miami in a second, but 2 snaps ready for Ron Kelly and company, who finally get it done in the season opener. On the road against Clemson, they move up to #3 in your rankings, Brandon.
Yeah, very impressive. LSU's defense has been revamped overnight with the transfer portal. Blake Baker, a lot of pressure on him. He came into LSU as the highest paid defensive coordinator. Didn't live up to expectations last year, so they rebuilt that defense. They are incredible in the trenches on both sides of the ball. Garrett Nussmeier showed in week 1 why he might be underrated as a pro prospect. I think he's a guy who did very well with all the others we're seeing, including Arch Manning, who struggled to do his debut. But LSU just has all the pieces in place this year to win a championship. And the one doubt we all had in our minds was, man, they just can't win season opener. Going 0-5, 0-3 under Brian Kelly. But they were darn impressive at Clemson. And I would say their toughest season opener during this 5-game, 6-game stretch. And they won it. They won it with defense and with Garrett Nussmeier making big plays and big moments. Quite honestly, LSU should have won that game by double digits, if not grade. Boneheaded decision by the officials to overturn a touchdown that I called a touchdown catch, and then also some other turnovers and mistakes. LSU is legit and a championship contender this year.
I think so too, Brandon. That was, I thought, the most impressive win of the weekend because of where it was, and going to Death Valley, handling that crowd. So I agree with Garrett Nussmeier, not only from the perspective of how he played, but to have somebody who's got that swagger, that control, emotional heartbeat of that team, to put them in the right situations. A lot of little things throughout the game that I was noticing, aside from the great throws that he made at times, but checking out the right things, not making a big mistake, coming up big when he had to. I thought that was phenomenal. And their defense, you mentioned Blake Baker. How about them using Harold Perkins, who's been somebody that can try to figure out what role he plays in that defense, comes up with massive pressure, force Gabe Klubnik to throw it much earlier if he wanted to in that situation. Totally agree with your perspective on LSU. On the flip side, Clemson, I don't know what to do with that now, because that was a concerning loss for them. They were supposed to be one of the best teams in the country. I still think they could be. But the offensive side of the ball is definitely concerning. Their inability to run the football, having a true running back to emerge for them, absolutely has some people concerned. And I think rightfully so in Clemson this year. So we'll see how they bounce back. They could do last year, but they did have to bounce it back after that loss to Georgia. But you saw the same look on Gabe Klubnik's face. A little bit of fear in the headlines, a little bit of lack of confidence. That has me concerned about Clemson.
A win on the road against Clemson will warrant a top 3 ranking, that's for sure. So will a win over Notre Dame, a team who's fresh off a national championship appearance. What did you learn about Miami last night, Danny, who vaults into the top 5 in our power rankings?
A couple of things. One, I was very curious to see what Carson Beck would look like. Jordan, like just new system, elbow surgery, how would he fit? I thought he looked comfortable, like very poised, composed, but going Shannon Dawkins' system, I thought he knew where to go with the football. Credit to his offensive line because they did great protection. They didn't really got away from being able to run the ball successfully in the second half, but I think that's clearly one of their strengths. And then since we're talking about defense, I think you have to give a tip of your cap for that defensive line. King Mesidor, Ruben Bain coming off the edge, completely neutralized Jeremiah Love, who I thought was one of the best running backs in the country. Not yet, but they had a young quarterback starting, C.J. Carr. Well, Miami's defense, I think, which had such a long way to go. Like, Carson Beck came in there to replace Cam Ward, and he's done a really good job on that one. The more dramatic improvement needed to take place on the defensive side of the ball. So that's what I think should be the most pleasing thing for Miami Hurricane to see.
The thing that really concerned me, the one thing that concerned me about Miami was I just kept expecting the Mario Cristobal clock mismanagement to come back to haunt him. I mean, even going just outside the red zone, kicking a 47-yard field goal with a minute 4 left. They weren't trying to throw the ball to get even deeper into Notre Dame territory. I was going, man, they're just playing with fate right now, which is Mario Cristobal saying. But the kicker nailed it, and then the defense stepped up and slowed down their game. And in fact, it was Marcus Freeman and his quarterback, CJ Carr, ended up having to block this game finishes of their own, unable to spike the ball and get one more play off and potentially win the game. But one other thing that is concerning, I'm not being negative about Miami, but there was a stretch where the third and fourth quarter, they had 4 straight drives without a first down. They had 13 plays or 15 plays where they didn't get a first down. That seemed to me they were tightening up a little bit. Brett Notre Dame's defense, yes, but I think Miami was stealing it a little bit, tightened up. But I'll tell you what, you can't ask for a better week 1 win and debut for a roster that's comprised of so many new pieces at the skill positions, not just Carson Beck, but a receiver. And a freshman like Malachi Tony to come in. Listen, I've got Miami this strength of the string game on the field with Mario Cristobal, and they kept telling me, watch this Malachi Tony kid. He is fantastic. Not only is going to play for us, but we think he could break a lot of records before his career is over with here. What a debut for them. Very, very, very happy with what Miami's got going on right now. They answered pretty much every one of my concerns with flying colors.
Yeah, a big win there for Miami. I can't say the same for our friends in Texas, the Longhorns, after the loss to Ohio State and a really rough debut for quarterback Arch Manning. Texas, as expected, falls to 7 in the power rankings. Luckily, the next few games should be wins for this Longhorns team as they look to get back on track here, Brandon. How can they take advantage of the next 3 weeks?
Yeah, just get Arch Manning more comfortable there in the pocket. I thought early in the game he was thinking too much from the perspective of, I can't take off and run if I don't see a receiver open. I think he was a little bit too much in his head at that point, and it led to some bad throws and some bad decisions. Listen, Danny can go into this much deeper because he played the quarterback position. But I'll also say this.
World champ Lolo Jones has dominated the track and conquered the bobsled. Now she's ready to take on pickleball, puppy yoga, and hiking. This offseason, she's discovering new ways to get moving with help from Sierra's amazing brands at incredible prices.
The best workout ever. Sierra, let's get moving.
Look at that press box, you get a bigger view of everything. Ohio State secondary shut down those Texas receivers for the most part. And I think Arch Manning just didn't have any places to throw. He struggled last season on short intermediate routes. He's a beautiful deep ball thrower, but he struggled with some decision making on the shorter throws last year. And against Ohio State, he seemed timid but not wanting to make those type of throws. I used him to go big or nothing on several plays, but they were locked down downfield. But credit to Steve Sarkisian for getting after what everybody was thinking. I need to give more designed runs to Arch Manning. That's a big strength of his. That's what made him so successful last season off the bench. They need to do that earlier in games to get him more comfortable. And these next couple of weeks, they'll be able to do just that as a superior competition.
You know what else I would do, Brandon? I would just go with tempo. When they start going no huddle, you don't have as much time to think. You can just play the sport, get the calls fast. You're just going. I thought he was much more comfortable in that second half. You know, playing behind because they had to. And he just sort of looked more comfortable. Early on, he did look rattled. He looked, a little bit nervous, anxious within the pocket, kind of jittery feet. Didn't set his feet, threw the ball with a lot of authority. They've got 3 games. And this is, I did not have Texas in my preseason, pick to win the national championship because I think this is normal. Like, this is a first-year starter. He was on the road. I thought that was more of what I would expect from Arch Manning. But then the next time they play, an SEC opponent will be in Florida, in Gainesville, which is not going to be easy. So they have to get his confidence level up. Let him have some good games statistically. let them kind of figure things out, operating that system, or else it could be a much more bumpy ride for Texas Longhorns.
Well, one more thing. Can you imagine if Texas was shut out in that game, how the voters would react to that, and how the CFP later down the season, if they're a 2 or maybe 3-loss team, would judge them by being shut out against a good team? That would have been gigantic for them. It's good that they got that one touchdown. I know that sounds silly. Now they're shut out. Things would be looking a lot different.
No, it's a great point to bring up because we see it time and time again, and it will definitely play a role at the end of the season. Right. Lastly, let's end on a high note, shall we, gentlemen? FSU, a team that almost everyone wrote off this offseason, and for good reason, to attend High Hill. Andy Klein's number 13 after a dominant win over Bama, potentially exposing the Tide. It's an excellent win, but it's just one win. What more do you want to see from the Seminoles as the weeks roll on? How can they build upon this?
Oh, I want to see 12-0, Jordan. I want to see this team run the table that I want to see. But you know what? There was a lot of nervous, cautiously optimistic, but nervous Florida State fans. Boy, after Alabama went the length of the field with that 17-play drive to open the game, on the sidelines, there was a lot of anxious energy. Uh-oh, how is our defense going to be? But I thought you got just such a resounding performance where they dominated. From that point on, they dominated both lines of scrimmage. You got exactly what you wanted. Gus Malzahn's system with a quarterback who really seems to fit like a glove with what Gus wants to do, and Tommy Castellanos get those little hidden yards, running the football, coming up with a few big plays in the pass game. I do think that was sort of those. It's been such a long, emotional roller coaster going all the way back, not only with 2-10, getting left out of the playoffs, feeling like you got the shaft, and last year losing to programs like Duke, losing to your rivals. It was an incredibly long offseason for that program, and the thing they desperately needed was their confidence back, their belief back, and it is pretty amazing what one game can do. But I think the entire country is looking at this Florida State team entirely differently because of it. And I think what's good is, I think Alabama still could be good. I know there's a lot of even Bama fans who are ready to throw in the towel on them. We'll see what the season holds for Alabama. But I think that playing with a new quarterback, I don't think it was shocking that they struggled. Now, there was some definitely causes for concern, but I think it'll be interesting to see what direction Alabama goes from here. People are ready to just fire Kalen DeBoer and say he can't coach anymore. Fascinated to see the direction of both these programs. What do you do when Florida State?
Talking just about Gus Malzahn playing against and coaching against Alabama brings out the best in him. The offensive coordinator at Florida State now, former Auburn coach, UCF coach, Gus called me this morning. Very, very happy. We discussed the game a little bit. He told me about how much more comfortable he feels on the sidelines. Only having to worry about the offense, not worrying about someone who's here. Talking about what should we do in third down defense, what's going on special teams, where we get guys getting on the field. He said he was much more comfortable, was able to go through his play sheet, look at things. He said he called a great game, obviously. It's also allowed him here this offseason to dig into his bag of tricks and dig up plays that he hasn't used since the late 2000s when he was at OC at Tulsa. He's much more creative right now than he has been in previous years. I'm excited for Florida State fans because you're getting the best version of Gus Malzahn as a play caller right now.
Right, Brandon Marcel, incredible insight there. I gotta tell you, I feel bad for the UCF fans out there. I kept thinking that the whole game, but
Football started me out with some preacher curls, and honestly, how can you not love preacher curls making that blood going? They actually did some tricep pushdowns, and bro, we're only 2 workouts in, and my arms feel like helium balloons. Hammer curls always make me feel like a beast. I was just doing that. These skull crushers would have been the best football gave me, but then my hair talks so loud. And finishing it off with the classic lateral raise.
All right, got one football, and let me know if you're a scriptless man.
Let's get fiscal. Lesson 3, receiving skills. Setting up your financial future? Credit Karma gives you the tools to unlock a whole new level of financial fitness so you can build your credit scores. Better scores can lead to lower rates on everything from credit cards and loans to insurance premiums. And lower rates mean extra cash in your pocket. Harness the power of Credit Karma today to win your financial future tomorrow.
The greatest series ever is back, college football imperialism, this time with 136 teams. Only one college will still be standing by the end of this video, and I waited on the updated rosters for this one because I wanted every college to get their fair chance at winning it all. How this works is each turn I'll spin this team wheel, it's going to land on a college, this one being Michigan, and then I'll spin this directional wheel to determine what area they're going to attack. So we have the Wolverines attacking a much smaller school in their state, Western Michigan, and the loser will be eliminated from imperialism. Then as a reward, the winner will get to take over all of their opponent's land. And this process will go on and on until there's just one team left. So make your winner prediction in the comments now, but don't cheat. It's not looking very good for Western Michigan, but you never know what they could do. And it is clearly pretty safe to say that they are not going to be able to beat Michigan. This one was pretty rough for the Broncos, losing 58-0, and they let true freshman quarterback Bryce Underwood do whatever he wanted. One thing that is really sweet about imperialism is we typically get some wild upsets you'd never expect. That did not happen there. I have a lot of faith, though, as we go down from 136 teams to just one, we're going to see some crazy stuff. With new teams, Missouri State and Delaware being added to the wheel, it'll be interesting when they get to play. But for now, we're going to get the Hawkeyes attacking somebody, and they're headed to the northeast. That arrow starts from the center of the logo, and it just hits Wisconsin's territory, not Minnesota's. But no matter which team it landed on, we were going to get a rivalry matchup. There's actually been a surprising amount of solid offense in this game so far, too. But what it will all come down to is whoever can score a touchdown. If Wisconsin can't pick up this 3rd and 10 with Billy Edwards Jr., where he takes a shot to the end zone, and it was just swatted out. Now they're going to have to kick a field goal, which is most likely going to set this game to overtime. We've seen missed kicks in imperialism, though we've seen block kicks. This one goes in. And what is Iowa doing returning this out? Is they're at the 13. They got this stadium pulse going against them, but they're still going to try and throw with a backwards pass that gets them almost nothing. I told myself, though, I'm going to be kinder to the Iowa offense this season. I'm going to be a little bit nicer, so I'm not going to criticize it yet. That kid's name was Mark Gronkowski that made the throw. Maybe he's the future for the Hawkeyes. All he has to do is get this team in field goal range. And let me tell you, I just did a little bit of research on him. He transferred in from South Dakota State. His record as an FCS quarterback with the Jackrabbits was 49-6, which is really impressive. That was a good run, too. So Mark Gronowski is going to earn my respect, and I think they're going to get a field goal. You can see the same problem we have had in imperialism every year, though, is going to be back this year, where the clock runs during the replays, which means teams have management stinks. I've told the devs about it. I don't know how it's still in the game. It isn't in Dynasty. If you watch a game like this in Dynasty, you won't run into it. But instead of having a chance at kicking 3, we have made it to overtime. As we head there, you'll see Wisconsin has the ball first on their first play. They're going for the end zone, and Iowa could have picked it. That could have been the game. It was in their hands. Instead, the Badgers get a couple more chances to at least make sure that they get on the board. And is it just me, or does all the movement from the mid quarterbacks in college football make like 0 sense? Billy Edwards Jr. was in Maryland last year. He wasn't anything special. And then he transfers over to Wisconsin, where he'll most likely still not be anything special. There's just so many movements like that, lateral movements that don't make sense. But this is how I was going to lose the game. It was a fumble because it was a backwards pass, and it just hits his helmet. He doesn't catch it. That's actually one of the worst ways I think we have seen a team go out in imperialism. I'm sorry, Iowa fans. You just got to wonder what's going through this kid's head. Did the nerves on the road get to him? Hits him in the shoulder. He doesn't even know where it's at. And then, of course, he cannot get back in time. I'm sure a lot of you are hoping that is not how your favorite college goes out in this imperialism, because that was pretty painful. That's exactly why I love imperialism, though. I told you some wild stuff was going to happen. Wisconsin has taken over more land than they've started with. But we are only 2 matchups into this 136 team imperialism. The next one is going to take us down to Texas, where UTSA, the Roadrunners, are headed on the road. I hate myself so much for that one. Anyway, they are headed up to the north, where this is just going to hit the Longhorns territory instead of the Bobcats. A slight curve can make a bigger difference than you might think. I would know. And I wish I could sit here and tell you that this was a great game, but I can't. UTSA got flattened. 38-14. Arch Manning definitely did well in his first test, but they're not all going to be that easy. Next up, the wheel is going to take us over to SMU. We are staying in the state of Texas, and they're going to be headed to the Northwest. This is going to match them up against North Texas. So we have another in-state matchup. And just because the Mean Green had me out for 1 game last year, they'll always have a special place in my heart. That's why I was really excited to see they still have a chance at this. The catch, though, is they spent the final 5 minutes trying to get the ball back, and now they only only have about 30 seconds left. If they don't make sure to get out of bounds, they're going to be in some trouble. They have no timeouts left. They're down by 8. Coming back in this circumstance is an extremely tall ask, especially since the computer is going to be smarter in this game than they would have been last year. There's no pressing going on at the moment. SMU gave up exactly what they wanted to, and this is where the time is about to run. See, before North Texas even has a chance to get up to the line, another 5 seconds went off of the clock, so they basically have 2 plays left to try and pull off the comeback, but they're in bounds, so that's going to do it. It was a really good effort from them, though, for taking on a team that was just in the college football playoff. Nothing to be ashamed of at all. You're just going to have to give up their spot in this imperialism. I always love seeing how the map will change over time. You never want to get too much territory. And that wheel spin was a close call, but I'm giving it to South Carolina, which means Lenora Sellers gets to play. Now, he is very fortunate with where that wheel spin landed, pointing over in this direction. There's just a little bit of connecting land between Georgia Southern and the Gamecocks, so he gets to take on the Eagles. At first, I thought he was going to have to face Georgia, which would have been wild for one of our first 5 games. Sure enough, South Carolina went on a 38-0 run before Georgia Southern even got on the board. There was nothing too exciting to see here. They were able to take care of business, get themselves a nice win, and get Georgia Southern taken off the map, but it's going to put their territory touching another big school like Florida. We will see how that ends up affecting them in the grand scheme of things. For all we know, they might not get drawn on this wheel for like another 50 or 100 turns. UMass is very interesting, though, just based off of their location. They are up here in the Northeast with Boston College, a team that typically either makes the top 10 or top 25 almost every time because there's not much competition in this region. But Boston College is being attacked. If UMass somehow pulls off this upset, that would change everything. And I was not expecting this, but it actually became a reality. The Eagles are currently down by 16 points on a 4th and 3 they had to get. They're going to need a touchdown, a 2-point conversion, then they're going to have to do it all over. So I think it's pretty safe to say the Minutemen are in a solid position, though they gave up the touchdown. We might be witnessing the start of a generational choke. 2-point conversion, though, is thrown into the Minutemen's hands. And since they couldn't get the ball back after that moment, there was no recovering from it. That is going to give UMass the win over Boston College. I don't think we have ever seen them get eliminated this early. This has got to be an imperialism record. It also will affect how that entire Northeast region plays out because Syracuse might be able to win it all now. At least that region. Going on and winning the entire imperialism is still going to be a challenge. UCLA got the draw next. We're about to see what Nico Iyamaleva can do against San Diego State. Now that he no longer plays for Tennessee, I can like him, I can root for him, even after all the drama that went on with the NIL stuff this offseason. You know, the beauty of living in this country is you have a free market. You can test your value. Doesn't mean it's going to work out the way you want it to. But at least he's not going to be knocked out early on in imperialism. That run right there set them up to take a 17-point lead, and they were never going to blow it after that. And it's pretty safe to say that so far the small schools have not been faring well against the powerful ones, besides when UMass shocked the world against Boston College. That's about how it typically goes, though, whenever we just get started with an imperialism. Then, the deeper we go, the harder we go, the faster we get through this, all of a sudden, we'll see some more upsets. Indiana is the next team to get landed on, also coming off of a playoff appearance. And I kind of feel bad for Purdue because I think we all know what is about to happen to them. Just give it another month or two. I'll put out my video with the Boilermakers titled, I Rebuilt the Worst Team in the Big Ten. Again, it might just become a channel tradition. Looking at what they're doing, though, they're not out of it yet. Ryan Brownie's thrown 2 interceptions, but he's also thrown for a couple of touchdowns. Most importantly, he's kept this as a one-possession game, and he's going to keep the ball to move the chains. They still have about a minute and a half to make something happen as well. With some good pocket movement, he gets it out at the last second. His receiver was the problem there, though. You have got to catch the ball. On 3rd and 10, that's what he's going to hope his teammates can do, is he floats up a 50-50 one. And about everybody in this stadium knows what's coming. I think they can be proud, though, that at least they gave Indiana a fight here. They sling it out, and hang on, Purdue is not done. There is still hope for the Boilermakers, though he set him up. I don't know why Ryan wanted to see his teammate get cracked like that, but he almost did again. He definitely took it better that time. He was able to catch the ball, but they had to burn a timeout in the process and get out of bounds. All of a sudden, there is hope for Purdue fans as they keep hitting that hit. But they have used all their timeouts, which might come back to bite them. Don't tell me they threw a pick after all this work. Ball is still in the air. I'm doing what every dad in the crowd is currently doing right now. Is Ryan Brownie going to be able to help them pull this one off? He looks like he's about to take a sack if he does. That's going to cause the clock to wind down. This is probably the final play of the game. Purdue takes a check down, and you can't reach the end zone. I really thought that there was a chance that they pulled off the rivalry upset for just a second. It's okay, though. Those fans are very similar to me. Just like them, I am most likely already looking forward to basketball season as a Kentucky one. I can sympathize with them, though. As long as the wheel doesn't land on Kentucky, we're going to stay in. UConn getting a draw means UMass might be on the chopping block already. But instead of the Huskies taking on the Minutemen, they're deciding to go after our nation's Army. On paper, the Huskies are the better team. Their 2 overall is better. Army's offense is only at 69. But that did not matter. They had the home crowd on their side, and they have a 1-point lead with a minute remaining. UConn only needs 1 point, though, which means if they get into field goal range, it's over. Joey Fagnado just got them there. He is dealing with a lot of stadium pulse at the moment, and with a very clean pocket, he hooks up with his receiver. As long as the Huskies' clock management isn't horrendous, they should be able to close this one out. They are calling another play, though, as time winds down, and then they can use one of their final times. So here you can send on the field goal unit, which is going to drill it, and you gotta feel for Army right now. They only have 8 seconds to pull off a miracle, and they're going to complete a check down inbound, which means we're seeing UConn have success. It's not just UMass having success, UConn is too. I don't know what's happening right now, but this is setting up to be a pretty dang good fearless. I still think Syracuse is going to end up coming out of that Northeast region, though, and we're headed to Oregon State. The poor Beavers are one of the 2 teams that got left out in conference realignment, and with a weakened roster, they're going to have to take on their in-state rivals, Oregon. There's no way they can be happy with having to face one of the best teams in the game this early on. To my surprise, this is probably the lowest scoring game that we've had so far. Oregon State would need to score on this play to have a chance. If they were really smart, they'd at least attempt a field goal. Instead, they're just sending up a prayer to the end zone, where they should have caught that ball. No wonder the Beavers only ended up scoring 3 points. That would have gone so much differently, too, if they just had an offense for 60 minutes. With that result, we're literally just 10 games into a fearless. So not too much has changed. Your favorite team is probably still in this thing. And Cincinnati is going to have to go somewhere trying to take over some more territory. Their first matchup doesn't seem too bad. They're just going to be attacking the Ohio Bobcats. But if you know anything about college football imperialism history, you know to never sleep on Ohio. This is a team that probably gave us the most special imperialism of all time. And in college football 26, they might be able to do it again. Cincinnati's currently trailing by 5, but it seems like they're about to take a lead with that amazing spin move. Ohio just couldn't wrap it up. Ohio's defense hadn't given up a touchdown all day, but they finally did. They gave up the 2-point conversion as well. For a split second, it seemed like the Bobcats might be able to pull off the upset. But now with 90 seconds remaining, they're trailing by 3, and they're already near midfield. The clock is actually working in their favor as well. But Parker Navarro throws a pick straight to the Bearcats. Cincinnati wins this game with 1 first down, and they're going to come close. It looks like there is not going to be an Ohio storyline in this video, unfortunately. Their last hope is just sending the house on 3rd and 2, and they did. With 1 minute remaining, the Bobcats are about to get the ball back. Getting a touchdown in this time frame, though, is going to be extremely hard on them, especially with a short throw underneath like that one. Now they're going to laser over the middle. But Parker was not on the same page as his receiver, so he goes back to his title. By spiking the ball, they're going to have about 18 seconds.
At BMW, text Chris. Busy with the performance review. This summer, make your own plans in the ultimate riding machine. Find yours at the BMW Summer Sales Event on now.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Crafted unique notes like mold soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Crush cold and flu symptoms day and night with all-in-one relief. Save up to 25% with the new Snacks Value Combo Pack.
So when we first heard about Betty, I probably was one of the biggest skeptics. Before Betty, our payroll process was very long and tedious. 32 labor hours, you would say, was spent on payroll prep before we even started doing payroll. We decided to go forward and implement Betty, and it's definitely proven me wrong. Now that we have Betty, we are able to complete it in 8 hours. Betty makes me feel confident.
And it's really served to be a seamless solution, hopefully improve the frankly for the administration of the HRS.
I thought that was a fumble. It should never be if it was a forward pass, but just the way that it bounced, it made it look like it might have been. That last completion sets them up for 2 Hail Marys. I hope they actually send this one to the end zone. They didn't, but they tried to get a little bit closer before having to send up one last prayer. I just don't get why you would throw that so short. For the things that the computer got smarter with, I feel like they're still really dumb in other situations, like that one right there, but Cincinnati's going to escape with the win. They are for sure thankful that that's how it ended up turning out, and they're going to double their territory. If they're struggling with Ohio, though, I have a hard time imagining they're going to be able to win it all. For a split second, it looked like we were going to stay in Ohio. Instead, it landed on Oklahoma. They will be trying to take over one of the other teams in their state, Tulsa. If we're being honest, the Sooners should really never lose this game. And that's exactly how this one turned out. A late touchdown by Tulsa made it look like it was an 18-point one. It wasn't. That's still getting outplayed, but they were outplayed even more than that. Tulsa just didn't put up much of a fight. It's a shame because their imperialism appearance isn't going to last for very long. Maybe the Aggies will. The question's going to be, can Texas A&M live up to expectations? Surely they should be able to handle Texas State in their first game. They do have to go on the road on a team that will be a member of the Pac-12 in the future. But even if I'm glad that the Pac-12 is getting revived, it's definitely not what it used to be. That was another chance for an upset that is not going to happen. Realistically, the best way for a small school to make it super far is not get landed on. Or San Jose State, though. They just got selected. They're headed north. And Stanford will be awaiting them, but this is not the Stanford that they used to be. I remember as a kid, some of those Stanford football teams were awesome. They were a bunch of fun to watch. Maybe this can be the year where they have another great season as well. I don't know their roster. Beating San Jose State doesn't say much, but their running back Michael Ford had a pretty good game. They won 38-17. Like I was saying, Michael Ford was able to rush for over 100 yards, and the home territory was defended well, doubling the size of the land that Stanford currently controls. That now means that USC has some easier access to them, though. It looks like we're going to be staying in the state of California. In fact, Stanford could be the first team to play back-to-back games. That is absolutely brutal. They're facing back-to-back attacks, one from each side. They're getting put in the middle of it. They might be able to survive the Eiffel Tower, though. All they have to do is beat the Golden Bears. So far, so good. Their defense just needs to hang on for one more drive. They got the fans on their side, and I know I mention it in about every imperialism, but I'm going to mention this again. The fact that this is an ACC matchup is ridiculous. It'll never make any sense to me. It was the worst thing that came out of conference alignment, in my opinion. This is also how I'm learning that Cal has former Ohio State quarterback Devin Brown there. He never got the start, but we are now going to get to watch him go to work. Currently, he has them on the 44-yard line, and now they're going to get a big gain inside the red zone. Here's the problem, though. Look at the clock. By the time that they get off another snap, this is going to be the final play of the game. Can Devin Brown send this one to overtime? He throws it up to the end zone, 50-50 ball, and it's caught by Stanford. You cannot light up under the player. I couldn't tell who was getting it. They were able to make the defensive stop. I thought that Cal actually had it. Great D from Stanford, though. They were putting in that work, and now they've been able to acquire 2 more territories. If you look over at the state of California, there's only 4 schools left there. It makes sense that between them and Texas, 2 of the states with the most football schools, they're losing a lot of programs. And I'm almost positive Ohio is in the top 3 of having the most colleges at the FBS level too. Bowling Green is one of those programs. I don't know who said it was a good idea to attack Ohio State, but that's what they're doing. They're trying to pull off what would most likely be the biggest upset that we have ever seen in imperialism. They were able to score 16 points, but when you can't stop Ohio State's offense in Jeremiah Smith, you're not going to win. I always like when small schools have that chance, though, to pull off an upset because we have seen it happen before. And if it doesn't, since Ohio State had to expand their territory, there's a higher chance that they get attacked or they have to attack. Now, I'm going to be very curious to see what Utah can do here. I don't know much about their team this season, besides Cam Rising is finally gone. We're not going to hear about him getting injured again. We'll see how they do against Utah State. I have a feeling they're probably going to win the battle of the brothers just based off of their performance in one of my recent videos. Devin Dampier's not done enough to put his team in front though. And what I find so interesting about this matchup is that quarterback from Utah State, Bryson Barnes, used to play for Utah. He wanted a chance to get more playing time, so he transferred over to the Aggies, where he now has a chance to take down his former school. I really don't know how serious people out in Utah take this rivalry. I would assume that Utah BYU is a much bigger deal to Utah fans. And this made me realize I really know nothing about Utah besides 70% of the state's more. It looks like after getting held to a 4th and 2, though, they are just going to punt it, and they're going to pin them back. So there was an opportunity here where they could get a game-winning starting safety, but they only had 3 defensive linemen out there. What this means is we are headed to overtime. That is something I can fully get behind. Devin Dampier used play action to just throw a short pass. I guess he did not like any of his deeper options, making it 3rd and 9, where he throws it up. This is probably going to be a jump ball, and Utah State gets the interception. Assuming they don't really mess things up here, they're going to win. All they have to do is not do something like throw an interception. In fact, I don't know why they were even throwing it in the first place. They should have just kicked 3. In fact, they just made things way worse if they can't get off of this hash mark. And they're definitely going to miss this field goal. If you've ever watched the computer kick in a situation like this, you would know that they really struggle on hash mark. So if Utah State misses this, I'm giving it like a 50-50 chance. Are they going to be able to pull this off? They do. I can't believe it. I thought we were about to get another round of overtime, but they didn't. You can add that to the list of another result that is just catching me off guard. It's an upset. I don't know how much of an upset it'll be. Maybe the line would be set at like 10, 14. Either way, we appreciate the chaos, and we are off to Memphis. Well, Memphis is off to attack one of the new 2 teams on the map, Missouri State. I can't even say it's time for the Bears' imperialism debut, because whenever I've used FCS schools in the past, I'll do it again this year. I've probably used Missouri State before. I just can't remember if I have or not. Anyway, they're hoping to not get put out early. What's crazy, too, is if their offense even existed a little bit, they had a really good chance just based off of the way their defense was playing. But since they only scored 3 points, I mean, what more can you expect besides getting eliminated? I was pulling for them, but they did not play well. Next up, we got Kansas State. Sometimes, since there's only 2 teams in the state of Kansas, they can go a long time without playing. But not this time, and Nebraska's not going to be able to avoid either. One of these 2 programs is about to be eliminated forever. And I can't believe how hard Kansas State is currently choking. There was a moment where the Wildcats were up 20-0, but Nebraska scored the last 14. Dylan Raiola is finally living up to his 5-star potential, and he just got them another 8. We'll see if he can keep up his streak of completing passes, but it looks like he's about to get a sack. He got rid of it. That was massive from the young cornerback, and now he's going for an end zone shot, which is going to be completed. All Nebraska has to do is hit an extra point. What are we watching right now? I want to see the celebration. It was Dan Key who brought it in, a former Kentucky receiver. I'm sad. I wish he would have stayed in Kentucky his entire career. But I am happy to see him having success with the Cornhuskers. Now, Avery Johnson it's his turn to respond, and this is a very, very good start. You know, sometimes you just got to chuck it and hope for the best. Dylan Edwards did not explode far there, but it was seeming like he could have. I mean, he was coming quick. What this is really all going to come down to, though, is about 5 yards. I see some open underneath players, and Nebraska can't let him turn upfield. That just made this kick so much easier than it would have been. They are going to put that one through the uprights. There's not much that Dylan Raiola is going to be able to do here. That's going to seal this game. Though they break a tackle, I wish the computer would start lateral and stuff. Like, if they came out knowing it was the final play, and they threw like a screen pass, and you guys following back, they're throwing pitches, it'd be really cool to watch. Now, knowing how EA can code stuff sometimes, that might turn into a broken mess, but I would be willing to risk that chance for some of the crazy things that would happen. Especially if you could start running some of that lateral stuff yourself. Anyway, this is what the map is currently looking like, with Kansas and Oregon cutting some of the biggest territories of teams that have gained some length. We will see how long that remains true. Arkansas is going to get selected here. I think they're a really interesting team inside the SEC to rebuild. They're going to try to prove that they don't need it, though, by beating in-state rivals Arkansas State. This is a game I could totally see them losing, but then going on to beat some top 10 SEC program they have no business taking down. My prediction was spot on, by the way. Look at where this one currently stands. The Razorbacks are down by 7 points, but Taylor Green's keeping them in. There's still 20 seconds left, and we know that this kid can sling the rock. He is very lucky they didn't turn around and pick that ball off, though. Now he's finding the seam on the cover 3. But the question's going to be, with 12 seconds left, are they going to get off another snap? We know that they should, but that clock's going to start running. Here we go. 3 seconds left now. He's clapping fast. He gets the snap out. We might have an overtime. No, we're not getting overtime. Taylor Green just took a check down, knowing that the game was on the line. So Arkansas State gets the win. I am sorry, Arkansas fans, that it has to be this way, but it does. That is going to be the short existence of the Razorbacks in Imperialism. Temple is another team in the Northeast region, by the way, that could make things interesting. They just happened to get the worst draw of all time, and this happens more often than you might think. I can vividly remember them being put out like this in basically every Imperialism. And this Imperialism is going to be no different. Penn State is currently up by 32. They were so solid defensively, they wouldn't even give up a touchdown at the end of the game. And Drew Aller played about as well as you could have hoped that he would, as his team easily took care of business versus the Apples. That is going to make Delaware's chances of staying in this thing a little bit worse. Though they're not very high, I'm just tracking them because they are one of the major teams with this Imperialism. They're a very small state, so they might not get attacked for a while. Currently, though, Penn State could also be the team that takes over the entire Northeast region. And these California schools have been getting pretty busy this entire Imperialism. We're going to get another attack out of UCLA, this time headed over to Arizona State. The last team they faced was San Diego State, so this will be a lot more challenging. But with 2 minutes left, they look like they have a really good opportunity to win. What they're going to have to do, though, is somehow stop Sam Levitt, who got this one out very quickly. They got a guy at receiver just spamming juke moves for no reason. Not sure what's up with that, but then they ran into each other. Kenny Dillingham is going to be losing his mind over there on the sidelines, but now he can be fine because Arizona State just went up by 1. What will Nico Iamaleava be able to do in response? He's been having a good game as well. Turnovers have not been a thing for these 2 star quarterbacks, but Nico came close to turning it over there, and that was another tight throw that worked out. If just one of those guys turned around half a second sooner, it'd be over. I thought he was about to pick up the first. There were way too many defenders he had to evade there, though. It is 4th and 1, UCLA's life on the line, and the check down might do it. They can kick a field goal from here. It's going to be far, so it's not a guarantee that it goes in, but that's going to help. I mean, they don't even need to be throwing it anymore, but they just keep on doing it. And if Nico were to throw an interception, that would be the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Why are they not running the football? Arizona State pulls off the miracle and somehow doesn't lose. I just don't get it. Like, why would you throw it there? The Bruins could have easily won this game, but instead, they're not going to pull off the upset. They're going to knock themselves out instead. And from the looks of it, in this Imperialism, nobody's going to be able to close out any games. Everyone's going to struggle. And it might seem like their team is a guaranteed win at some point, but they could find a way to mess it up. We will see if Pitt ever ends up finding themselves in that kind of situation. They get a really relaxing start to Imperialism, taking on Penn State. I really don't think there's been a worse team in college football in the last few years, besides the Golden Flashes. Just for reference, in the last 2 seasons, they have won 1 total game. That is why it is so baffling to me that Kent State even has an opportunity to be in a competitive matchup with the Panthers. But I will say, they completely blew it in the 4th quarter when they let things get out of hand. And even at the end of the 3rd quarter, there was actually a moment in that game where Kent State had a lead and just couldn't find a way to get the job done. So they're going to be out. And that leaves us with 2 teams in the state of Pittsburgh. Back up to Michigan, like we started Imperialism is where we're headed. This time, the Wolverines might not be taking the field. They especially can't if Central Michigan's attacking, trying to take down the Spartans. Now, if you look really closely into the crowd back there, you're going to be able to spot a wild Connor Stallion sitting out there on the sidelines. I'm not sure how he did it, but he's done it again, and what he watched was Michigan State handle Central Michigan pretty easily. That leaves 3 powerhouse football programs from Michigan still left in Imperialism. You got the Spartans, you got the Wolverines, and then you got Eastern Michigan. With their current position, they are a real threat to win it all at the moment. We will see how that pans out, and the wheel is now taking us over to Bill Belichick and the Tar Heels. You know, he might be the happiest 80-year-old on the planet. I wouldn't want to coach against him. Since he has to play Liberty, though, I actually wouldn't count out the Flames. They might no longer have Caden Salter, but they're still typically pretty good. They just didn't show up offensively without him in this game, only scoring 10 points, so the Tar Heels are going to win. That's not too surprising of a result, though. That's about what we expected to happen. There will be no underdog run for Liberty in this Imperialism, and Delaware did not get landed on. I was about to say the Blue Hens are so unlucky to already have to attack, but instead we have Duke, where it's almost impossible to tell which of these 2 schools it actually touches. After taking a real close look at it, though, I did determine that the Tar Heels are going to have to play back-to-back games like we saw Stanford do. And this one might not be as big of a deal as this would be if they were playing in basketball, but it's still a big rivalry, and currently Duke.
At Boar's Head, we rise with a mission to deliver craftsmanship worthy of your table. A promise kept with every new day. Boar's Head, committed to craft since 1905. The General gives you a break to keep you covered.
Yeah, whether it's from your car insurance
Or taking a break from being the opportunity guy.
Want to take the next step with Entivio? Then it's time to talk to your healthcare provider. With Entivio, you may be able to pay as little as $5 per dose. Plus, our team can help connect you with additional support programs.
Oh.
Here's a game changer on how to make money on your own time. I recently just started driving with Uber, and these are 3 things that surprised me. First, I bet you didn't know that you don't even need a car to get started. Yeah, I was so surprised too. But Uber's vehicle marketplace actually allows you to rent cars so you can get off the road without even having to own your own car. Second, and this one blew my mind, you can actually get paid up to 5 times a day. So seriously, if you need cash fast, the Uber app has you covered. Third, the app actually shows you where all the hotspots are. It's been like having a treasure map in my pocket, so it's been so easy to make the most out of my earnings. All of these pro tips have made my driving experience better than I could have ever imagined. I've been loving the flexibility and the quick cash flow of driving with Uber. It has been so perfect for my lifestyle. So if you've been considering driving with Uber, I say go for it.
Could have ended it. That was not a good read. The ball bounced up. I'm surprised they didn't catch it. Gio Lopez was setting his guy up for failure, and they're just going to take this check down to knock it to first and also fumble it. So Duke is going to win off of that. The Tar Heels had their chance to march down the field, get a game-winning touchdown. Instead, they're going to fall to the Blue Devils. Neither team played well offensively either, so neither of them really deserved it. All the Tar Heels had to do to not be in that position was put together one other good drive throughout that entire game. I really don't like seeing Duke do well in anything, but they have taken over a decent bit of land. We're going to have to head away from it for the time being as well, as Kennesaw State's attacking south. With their logo a little bit sideways, that's going to pin them up against Georgia Tech. I have a feeling one of the newer schools at the FBS level is most likely going to struggle. And as you can see, I mean, what was that? Team chemistry? No, currently at an all-time high for Kennesaw State, getting in the way of the throw. But at least I'm going to end up rebuilding them sometime soon, which I'm really excited to do. I think they got a lot of potential. At least potential for a fun video. They got one of these smallest stadiums in the country, which is always fun to rebuild when you're using a small school like that. Plus, we're going to have to compete with Georgia for recruits. For now, though, they are out of this video for the rest of it, and Stanford almost had to play again. They will not be the first team to have to get into 3 games already, though. Instead, it's Syracuse. But they will not be taking the field either, as they're the first team to get to claim an unclaimed state, since this is where the arrow points. That's what makes locations like that so overpowering, because they didn't have to risk losing in the process. We're going back to Texas again, though. Houston has gotten the draw, and they'll be trying to take out the Raging Cajuns, who are probably the best of the small Louisiana schools. I'm not considering Tulane a part of that group, by the way, even though they're group of 5. I feel like they're past that. As for the Raging Cajuns, though, they need to get Houston off of the field on the starting 5 to still have an opportunity in this game, and they're not going to. I figured they'd be able to get the ball back, and they'd have a chance to drive down the field and tie things up. But it just didn't work out that way. But I can't feel bad for them. They were only able to come up with 8 points. They had plenty of other opportunities. And I gotta say, fantasy football is already driving me nuts this year. I've had like 3 guys get injured. The season hasn't even started yet, and I just keep getting updates that more guys are missing. We're going back over to Stanford play. And they are about as lucky as it gets, because I've been doing it slowly. I even put the arrow over the map. If you start at the middle and you go up, they're just going to hit Nevada's territory instead of the Ducks. With that being their draw, the Cardinals have a much better chance at continuing their run. And if you were rooting for Stanford, I got some bad news for you. With 30 seconds left, they're down by 6, and they're most likely not winning. The only thing they currently have going for themselves is they have some timeouts remaining, which they're using. But they have got to get out of bounds without having to waste a timeout on some of these plays, where this was a perfect chance. He couldn't get there, though, so with 15 seconds left, we know what Stanford's reality most likely is. You've got to fight out now. They're just not going to get off another snap. In real life, they would have been able to get one more play, but by the time that they get up to the line, time is run out. So, shockingly, Nevada's going to get a win, and they're going to take over a ton of land. In fact, by the time I'm done moving all this territory over to their color, they might be the biggest one. That is always really hard to tell, though, until we get farther along into imperialism. It's just safe to say that it's close between them and like 5 other schools at the moment. Buffalo, another team up in that northeast region, is going to be attacking. This is the one we keep going back to, but you don't want Penn State having a chance to move upwards. It'd be nice if they at least had a challenge, as they were getting more and more territory. And from the looks of it, they just ran up the score on poor Buffalo. Their offense had a field day with them. So the most likely result is unfortunately the one that we just got in that game. If it was up to me, I'd want pure chaos. I'd make Drew Aller get benched for it or something. Penn State just got ranked on again. So maybe we can get pure chaos. I'm not sure what's up with all these teams playing back to back. What I do know though is the state of Pittsburgh's on the line, as the Nittany Lions have nowhere else to attack besides Pittsburgh. And this is a team where at one point I wasn't sure if they were going to be able to take down Penn State, so I'm not sure if they're going to give the Nittany Lions competition. Well, look at where we're sitting with a minute remaining in this game. Eli Holstein leading the Panthers down the field. They are only trailing by 3. A touchdown gets them to win. The problem, though, is they only have like 30 seconds now with no timeouts left, so they might just settle for 3. That's at least what I'm expecting them to do here. But the computer is dumb sometimes. I don't know what we're thinking. 9 seconds remaining. This cannot be an inbounds completion, and it's not. Assuming this kick goes in, we're going to be headed to overtime, where an upset is very, very possible. That has enough on it. I could really see the Panthers pulling this off in extra time, but you cannot lose any yards with a run. I thought they might there. On 3rd and 2, they go with the direct snap, and it's going to allow them to move the chains. That worked out extremely well, but now Penn State's prepared. Eli Holstein might just need to sling this one. I saw an open drag route. He found another open receiver who fights his way into the end zone. Penn State needs to respond with a touchdown themselves. Drew Aller has a lot of pressure on him, but they're starting strong. Then on this next play, he threw it straight at him. I know that just has to upset some of you Pittsburgh fans there, because you could have had the win, but he didn't turn around in time, and now they've given up a touchdown. Now it looks like the Nittany Lions are just going to kick an extra point, but next overtime, both teams have to go for 2, so that'll be really interesting. Though before we can even talk about that, teams have to be able to score first. Penn State doesn't seem like they're going to be stopped, though. That was until Nick Singleton just lost a couple of yards. And on 3rd and 2, Pittsburgh's going to get the sack. The Panthers are back in control. They have their chance. It's going to be hard, but if they get their touchdown, this doesn't even matter. What I've seen happen time and time again, though, in these situations, is the offenses just stall out. Or they end up making some wild mistake that cost them the game. Like that could have been a turnover, but the jet touch pass just worked wonders. If Eli Holstein can just close this out, he's going to be the man on campus. But I don't love that play call there. What just happened? I mean, it looks like he just somehow glided like 5 yards. Oh well, what is far more important here is how this drive ends, and they get the touchdown. You all saw it headed into this game. I was even a Pittsburgh downer, but they were able to beat Penn State. So one of the favorites of this entire imperialism has already found a way to get eliminated. Now when we revisit this Northeast region, who knows which of these teams is going to end up taking over the entire thing. Maybe it could even be Delaware, somehow. That is obviously a very big long shot, but I wasn't expecting Penn State to go out this early. And Arizona State already had to deal with an attack. Now they're going to try and get more territory. Either them or BYU is about to come out with a lot. And it feels like it's only been a few weeks since the Cougars lost their starting quarterback. You know, no matter what you might think about what all went down there, I think it's pretty refreshing to see a school just stick to their actual code. But look what it's got. They got rid of their quarterback to start someone that wears number 47. That is who is responsible for getting them into field goal range and giving BYU a chance to upset Arizona State. Now here's the biggest issue. You see it. They don't have timeouts left. If they're going to pull this off, this next play needs to get them 20 yards, and then they got to spike the ball as soon as possible. But that drag is well short. Without being able to get off another snap, Arizona State has survived again. They literally just keep on finding ways to win. But at some point, if you keep it close that many times, it's not going to always go your way. We still haven't even gotten under 100 teams yet either. These imperialisms are always a huge project. They take me quite a bit to put together, but I enjoy about every second of it. Now this next game is going to get us 2 schools that haven't had to play yet. Oklahoma State attacking the Jayhawks. We're getting ourselves back-to-back Big 12 matchups. It does seem, though, like this one is not going to be as close at the end because Oklahoma State's on a 4th and 20, where this kid had all the time in the world to find a receiver. They're not out of the game yet. What's remarkable, though, is he spent about another minute only getting them another 10 yards, and then they complete this. But at the rate they're currently going, they're not going to be able to pull off a 15-point comeback in the next 20 seconds. With 5 seconds left, I mean, they would literally have to score a touchdown immediately, and they did. Kansas got out to their early lead, and they were able to hold on to it the rest of the way. It was a lot tighter, though, until they got the pull away in that fourth quarter. We're about to see the map with their updated territory in the middle. It looks pretty weird the way it currently is, but this will change sometime soon. There's been a lot of action there than there normally is this early on in the Imperialism. We're going to be in Alabama for the first time. Not with Auburn, not with Alabama, but with Troy headed south. That means they're going to be attacking the Florida State Seminoles. And listen, I know I've spent a solid year just clowning on them for their 2010 season, but I would like to see them do well. Imagine going undefeated and getting snubbed from the playoffs to the next season where you go 2-10, and then the season after that you bounce back and you finally break through to the playoff. It'd just be an incredible storyline, especially for Mike Norvell, and I'm all here for it. With that annihilation over Troy, Tommy Castellanos throwing for 7 touchdowns might be the most passing touchdowns we've seen in the Imperialism recently. They're off to a hot start. But then again, it's not like they were defending their territory against a really serious attacker. I doubt they were sweating too much when they saw Troy was coming to town, and Ohio State gets to play for a second time. Which Moore-Mac school in the state of Ohio is about to get eliminated? It looks like Akron's time on this map has officially ran out. And do you want to know what's crazy about the Zips? They're not even bowl eligible this year because of academic issues. I'm not sure they would have made it there either way, though. They just lost 52-10. And it's about time that we hit our first big milestone in this Imperialism. If your favorite team can just survive one more round, they're going to make it to the top 100. Colorado State, though, will be at risk, and whoever they're attacking will be too. Well, if they're about to knock out Kansas State, they're going to have to come strong. Well, look at that. On paper, they're only 6 overall scores. They clearly have had what it has taken to compete with the Wildcats. I mean, this is just wild to see, but Colorado State's already in field goal range, and they passed on 3rd down. Now, if they're smart, they're going to run off the clock before kicking a field goal, and then she'll put them up. And that's exactly what they've done. They also have a lefty in this situation, so he shouldn't shank it, but he did. How is he sitting there smiling after missing that, too? You had an opportunity of a lifetime. Colorado State should be up by 3, but instead, they might not even make it to overtime if Kansas State moves in fast. Good thing for the Rams is the Wildcats have no timeouts left after they were trying to get the ball back, so I don't think they'll make it there. It would take a pretty miraculous play here where they somehow got out of bounds, but it's just not happening. With overtime coming up, the last time we were in this situation, we witnessed an upset, and it looks like Kansas State's got the ball first, where Avery Johnson got that out. I thought there was going to be like no chance that throw even made it there. There were like 3 defensive linemen with their hands up trying to block the ball. Big 3rd and 4 though, where they take a shot to the end zone. How did Colorado State leave him that open? Did no one see him? They're going to have to respond back after that one, and they might. It's looking pretty good so far. I love this. I think this is going to turn out to be a shootout, a great finish. But not getting into the end zone there, being stopped a yard short could be very bad. Whenever I've gotten down to this spot, I've noticed so many goal line stands. I guess I should just shut up because clearly there was no issue. On to overtime number 2 now, where they start out with a run. Nice little 5-yard gain. And I am very transparent. I will always be rooting for the underdog. I am biased here. I want Colorado State to succeed. I hope they pick this up, especially since Kansas State sent in the pressure, and they do. On this next one, Braden Fowler-Nichols looks to the corner of the end zone. Where's the miscommunication? Why did he not turn around for the ball? Colorado State needs to lock in. You can't have mistakes like that. It's now 3rd and 7, and it looks like they're going to get into the end zone. Kansas State is going to have to respond to the touchdown of their own. The 2-point conversion is a big deal as well, though, where they get it. I think I'm going to get to end this night witnessing an upset. But Avery Johnson might still be the hero that Kansas State needs, as they have already scored. And now they need their 2-point conversion. This is the life right here, man. I'm already invested. I'm deep into this Imperialism. Will the Wildcats be able to tie things up? They're going to hand it off, and Colorado State gets the goal line stand. That is how the Rams are going to take over what might be the biggest territory in the country. Before we're able to claim a winner, there's a long way to go. But for like the first 25% of this video, this imperialism has been electric. And as we zoom out, we look at our top 100, it seems like two of the biggest territories are Colorado State and Nevada. This imperialism has a lot of potential to be the best one we've ever got. So it'll be interesting to see how it all unfolds. Indiana's have to play again already. This time they're headed to the south, where they're going to run into Western Kentucky and the Hilltoppers. And I hope they can represent my home state at least decently. Just from the looks of it, they currently are. The Hoosiers are once again in a tough spot, but at least they have the football. With 54 seconds left on the clock, they're down by 4. They almost threw an interception that would have ended the game. And imperialism keeps on trying to give us some great results. Here we go. 3rd and 9, plenty of time back there in the pocket. I don't know why they only sent 3. Maybe it's because he just continues to throw it straight at some of these defenders. This is basically it. They still have all 3 of their timeouts left, but that shouldn't make much of a difference. They take the deep shot, and he misses the catch. All Western Kentucky needs is a first down. If they can't pull it off, then they still open the fact that Indiana could come back. But I think they're going to end the game right here on 3rd and 3, as they do. The Hilltoppers were able to defend their home territory and beat the team that I would not expect them to, which just adds to the list a group of 5 schools that have started to find a way to have success. The chaos is finally here. East Carolina is the next team getting a chance to do something. I think they have NC State and Duke touching their territory, and I was exactly right about that. Who they're going to be attacking is the Wolfpack, because the arrow pointed down here. They're the closest territory by lane. Now, I feel like I watched this exact game and very close in the last few seasons. And look at that. We have another tight matchup where NC State might be able to come back. All they need in the final 90 seconds is a field goal, but they've only been able to get onto the board once. It has been low scoring for them, but that's what they needed. They still have a minute to make the rest of this happen. East Carolina's defense is going to need to get a sack or something on CJ Bailey, which they didn't do. But the Wolfpack just used their final timeout. Now, I'd be very curious to know why they have a mascot that sits there in the dress. I was wondering that when they were showing the trailers. I am just not that familiar with NC State football traditions. They could still mess up this final 30 seconds as well. What they need to do with time running off the clock is just send the field goal unit out there. You don't need to complete a pass. They just got as lucky as they could have. I feel like that ref blew that whistle a little prematurely. He left them a second on the clock to kick the game-winning field goal, which they would not have had. That is how East Carolina is going to go out. I'm sorry, Pirate fans. You came close. Due to some bad clock management, they really had that one. It's unfortunate that's how it unfolded. But then again, if they score more than 8 points, they're not even in that position in the first place. Now we're headed back to Tampa for the first time since I moved from there. They're going to get to head down the road to play the war on I-4. That road, by the way, was always packed. If you want to go between Orlando and Tampa, there were certain times in the day where it was better to just go on 2 hours of back roads than get on that highway. And don't even get me started on the traffic in Tampa after the snowbirds move down every year. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the city, but now that I'm back in Kentucky and fall's coming, I could not be back. As for this actual game result, by the way, nothing too exciting here. UCF annihilated USF. In fact, until the 4th quarter, it was looking really rough for the Bulls. I would not consider a 21-point loss great either. It's just better than it was. And that result makes USF the first team to fall from the state of Florida. A lot of teams down there can sometimes make a really deep run because it's far away from everything else. You know who's not going to make a deep run, though? My Wildcats. We're already having to play. It's even worse that we're about to take on Louisville. I'm going to enjoy like the first 2 to 3 weeks of the season, assuming we can beat Toledo, and then after that, I'm just expecting it to go down there. At least for this game, though, it ended up going to overtime. So that's some pretty exciting stuff. We're going to have to stop Miller Moss, though, and he already gets them 20 yards. I definitely plan being there at this stadium during the Kentucky-Louisville game this year, especially since I do live in Louisville, right down the road. I don't understand why the city gets hate. I still love it here. That's not good, though. Right now, the Governor Cup is going to go to the Cardinals. We cannot let that happen, so we hit them with the same play they hit us with. Zach Cousins taking notes over there on the sideline. And I do appreciate Kentucky actually has our mascot in the game this year. Catch that. You know what makes me so sad is we lost multiple receivers to the transfer portal. We lost Dankey, we lost Varian Brown. And I'm not saying they would have made a difference there. Varian Brown would have dropped it anyway. But Now we need someone to make a play, and that's what we get, is we bossed that sorry corner. I thought for sure that was getting deflected, but now we have double OT. There's still some hope for my Wildcats, not anywhere to run. And after a 2-yard RPO, it is 3rd and 6, but we're going to get just enough. That stadium pulse isn't that loud right now. We're not too shook up. The 2-yard plays are starting to scare me, though. Louisville's drive looked a lot more efficient than ours have, until we just have a gaping hole for Dante to take and stride with. That was some of the most beautiful run blocking I've seen from Kentucky football in a couple of years, but that heck hurts. Now the Cardinals can win this with the 2-point conversion and a touchdown. We have to trust our defense, though, and see if they can get it done. On 2nd and 8, Miller Moss gets it out quickly, and they hang on. I got to be careful which of these Louisville players I talk crap about, too. Some of them live in my building. There's the touchdown, though. So, 2-point conversion time. Listen, if there were ever a moment for Kentucky to play lockdown defense, it would be right here. I see multiple guys open. Just there. No L's down today. Unfortunately, Louisville's going to knock out Kentucky. But listen, you best believe I am just sitting here waiting for the college basketball video game to eventually come out so Kentucky can have plenty of success in an imperialist. Just the fact that a college basketball game is coming back in the first place is so sick. It's going to be a long few years, but like this college football game, we didn't have it for a while. Looking back on it, the time we had to wait for it to come, it actually flew by pretty quick. For this game that we're about to see, Southern Miss is attacking LSU. Keep in mind, the Golden Eagles are one of those teams I've used in the video titled the worst team in the game. So unless their new head coach and like 80 transfers can save them, there's only one way this is going. I'm afraid I spoke too soon. I don't know what's been going on today, but these results have been nuts. It is 3rd and 12 for LSU. Garrett Nussmeier gets it out. He goes deep, and it's a 50-50 ball that is swatted out. There is just no way the Tigers lose this game. They're going to tie it back up. And on the other side of things, they're going to have to stop the Golden Eagles offense from getting in field goal range. I don't know why they just ran the football, but they're able to get the first down. Braylon Braxton has literally had to play perfectly to put them in this position. He's got 3 touchdowns. But I feel like Southern Miss's sense of urgency is not high enough. There's only 10 seconds left now. They're still throwing short. They're going to have to get at least 15 yards on this next play to have a chance. They did. They got the timeout out. Well, what are we doing? What are we doing? You're on the 33-yard line. Their kicker cannot be this bad. Why are they throwing up a Hail Mary? What? I don't understand. It's caught by LSU. The Tigers just don't deserve to be in this game, but they're going to get their chance to score a touchdown, and they throw a pick anyway. This is what was supposed to happen. If the Golden Eagles pass off on another field goal, I will lose my mind, though they might not need it. Braylon Braxton doesn't even want to lean on his field goal kicker. He said, I'm throwing for a touchdown. We're going to beat the Tigers. And I apologize for ever putting any disrespect on Southern Miss's name. Of all the winners of this result, I actually think that Tulane is going to be the team that benefits the most, though, because they always end up losing to LSU, being trapped in that corner. Now, if they wanted to get out of it, they get to play Southern Miss instead. Not that it's a guaranteed win. We just learned that it's not, but it should still be a little simpler. And the Ducks are getting another chance to take more territory. I think typically Boise State ends up making it pretty far, but that might not be true in this one. So if any Group of 5 team has what it takes to pull it off, I bet on that. That would clearly be a very smart decision too, because I don't know what has been going on. Well, we have another upset on the line. There's only 15 seconds left, and Dante Moore's got them just 17 points. And it is unbelievable that the Ducks are about to lose this game, though they catch a touchdown. The flag was against Boise State, so there's still hope for Oregon. Did they win the last imperialism that I did too? They were at least in the final, or maybe it was the video I filmed like a week ago where I said the college football season. Either way, they should not be losing. They're going to have to get this onside kick to still have a chance, and they don't. So it's becoming very clear that not a single team on the map is safe. Based off what we're currently seeing, if you want your favorite team to make it deep, I would just be rooting for that wheel to stay as far away from them as possible. You want this to come nowhere near your favorite school, and FIU almost got rained on. I really want to see the Panthers do well, despite knowing they probably won't. For now, though, we're getting another West Coast matchup, this time between Fresno State and UNLV. Now, if you were watching Week 0 of college football, you would know that the Rebels were struggling with FCS school Idaho State, but they didn't seem to have too many issues with the Bulldogs as they just won by 17. Maybe Dan Mullen was able to figure things out over there. It means they're going to be bordering USC a lot more, though. And with Arizona State on another one of their borders, they're not set up that well. We were about to get to see the Hurricanes play. Instead, it went to the other Miami down. And they're taking a straight shot between Ball State and Cincinnati to attack Louisville. That's just a little extra piece of land I'm sure the Cardinals don't want. But they're about to take it anyway. One, because they didn't have a choice. And two, because their defense has played well. Miami, Ohio would literally need to score in the next 4 seconds, which they took too long to even type the ball. It's not going to happen. I'm sure at some point we'll see some wild comeback like that we would never expect. But if you're down by 12 with 10 seconds left, you should. I think between the 2,000, 3,000 college games I've spectated over the last few years, that type of comebacks only happened once. I don't expect it to happen again. But just knowing it's possible is enough to keep me locked in. I'm somebody that loves to watch the final quarter of any game. I don't care if Georgia and Alabama are playing against the second quarter. I'm going to flip on those two MAC schools in the fourth quarter, especially if it's close. Speaking of the Bulldogs, though, they're about to attack South Carolina. This is a matchup that we knew was coming in the future. And I thought it was going to be close, at least exciting. When you all see this score, you're going to be shocked. If Georgia celebrated, you know Georgia won. Anyway, let's just go ahead and show South Carolina fans how bad it was. 40-0. The Bulldogs had almost 500 total yards of offense to your 175. I don't even want to know how Lenore Sellers played. It wasn't even Georgia's running game that did them so well, which is what I was expecting. It was Gunnar Stockton throwing for 425 yards. The Gamecocks just got embarrassed on national television while losing all of their territory. And this is what the current map of the United States looks like. The southeast part of the map always ends up being a lot more congested for the longest time because there's a lot more teams there. Florida State's going to get another opportunity to take the field guy. And we have another great game on our hands because I know the arrow is pointed down a little bit to the right into the Gulf. But the closest team that they can get to by land would be Florida. So despite being pointed down here, they're attacking the game. And nothing gets better than getting a rivalry game in imperialism. I guess Florida State didn't want to show up though, because even though DJ Lackway threw 2 interceptions and did not play that well, we could go over, see Tommy Castellanos didn't go for a single touchdown, and the Seminoles lost 38-9. That's the second time in a row I've been excited for 2 big schools in a rivalry, and I've just been let down. The next time the wheel gives us a matchup like that, I'm just going to have to keep that in the back of my mind. The Hokies are a new team, though. They have not had to play, and we're going to be getting them attacking Wake Forest. Now, I've definitely not given Wake Forest the most praise in the world when it comes to football, but they have a running back this year that is so fun to play with. Just trust me, load into an online game and go to work with Devon Claiborne's Platinum Shifty. As for this result, though, Wake Forest didn't score a single point. We went on a crazy streak of a bunch of close games and upsets to just now be getting blowout after blowout. Somebody's got to change that, though, and it could be FAU. Now, the odds of it are completely determined by where this arrow is pointing. It turns out that they're going to be attacking UCF Knights. And we saw what they just did to USF. However, it looks like Florida Atlantic's putting up a really good battle. Quarterback Kate Feldkamp hasn't kept them in this game, but he just made back-to-back really good throws, and UCF forced him to go out of bounds. Why did he fight? He just avoided that tackle completely. He did not want to get hands put on. And this is where UCF's defense is going to have to come up clutch as they're holding them out of the end zone. But the refs give them a touchdown anyway. I bet that gets reviewed. They're trying to decide the spot of the ball like I predicted. They determined it should be 3rd and goal, where they're not running, they're passing, and he wasn't even turned around. That corner is very lucky his body got in the way of that touchdown pass. The game now all comes down to this. Can the Knights hold on? It looks like they're going to send the house. And then they get hit with an RPO to number 50 set. Do they got like an offensive lineman playing tight end? All I know is the Knights should not be running the football right now. Taven Jackson hands it off again, though. What are they doing? The AI is somehow getting dumber and dumber on College Football 26. It had dumb mistakes on 25. But I feel like this is even stupider. I don't know. While spectating, I've just seen a lot of weird decisions between filming this imperialism and the last one. And it looks like UCF's not even going to get off another snap. It just showed the replay that never got up and spiked the ball. So FAU wins. As a true FIU fan for life now, this result does not make me excited. I know it's another upset. I just don't like seeing the Owls doing well. Notre Dame is going to expand in some direction, though. They're headed to the west. And that puts the Fighting Irish up against Northwestern. Now, I don't keep up much with the Wildcats in football, but I know they're building a new football stadium. I don't know if it's done, though, or if it's rendered into the game like they did for Kansas last week. It looks like their old one, so I'm just going to assume it still is. That was the most interesting part about this matchup. Notre Dame dropped 45 points, while they were only able to score 21 with basically half the total yards of offense. They were simply not able to find the level of success that they were probably hoping for there. That result gives Notre Dame a really weird shape on the map as well. Tennessee is next. I think they're the first team from the state outside of Memphis that's had to play this Imperialism. And they're trying to take out another team from their state, Middle Tennessee. I don't know if you all have seen anything about it, but the Blue Raiders are actually doing something pretty cool for NIL, where they only have one helmet and 2 jerseys to swap between, so they can have more NIL money to spend. Thankfully, inside the game, you can still use all their ones from last year. But I say that because it's interesting to see the direction the sport's going in, where they want less jersey options, but more money to spend on play. I think it's good for a team to have a little bit of jersey variety. Doesn't matter though, when winning is all that matters. And I'll tell you this, they have a real shot. Now, I have no idea how it was first and goal from the 13-yard line, but that's where they're at. And it seems like Tennessee's defense is going to be able to lock down. It really makes me wonder how this is the score in the first place. Miracles can happen though. 4th and goal from the 22. Will they score a touchdown? They're not going to. That is unfortunate. And why do they only have 3 defensive linemen up there? That's going to be the easiest run ever. They didn't even try to get the ball back with their 3 timeouts. They just let the volunteers get a gaping hole. So even though for a second it looked like they might pull that off, they lost. Just taking a look at this map right now, there's a lot more gray than there typically would be. I've seen most colors take the map over, but not that one yet. We'll see how that pans out. Charlotte is out. They have a lot of schools around them, so it might be hard to tell where this arrow is pointing. But to me, it's as clear as day that they're going to be attacking Coastal Carolina. As we head into this one, you'll see that these teams are very evenly matched. But this game on this teal field sure did not play out that way. The 49ers have only been able to score 3 points, while Coastal Carolina just dominated. They have been able to coast to a win while defending their home territory. But if you look at the teams that are currently surrounding them, I wouldn't say that they're in a very good spot. There's a lot of teams that can easily attack them and would also most likely take them down. So we'll see how long they last. That arrow almost touched Navy, but it was actually on Missouri. One team from the state's already lost, and it looked like they were going to try and avenge Missouri State, but this arrow's actually touching Illinois. And I am still learning more rivalry games and names every single day. I didn't know the arch rivalry was a thing. I don't know why it's called that, since the St. Louis Arch is where that's at. Missouri University's in Columbia, not St. Louis. So my guess is the St. Louis Arch divides the 2 teams. To connect the 2 schools, you gotta take the Interstate 5 or something. Anyway, this onside kick is gonna be scooped up by the Tigers, which is a massive deal because it gives them a shot in this game still. They've driven down the field all the way to like the 5-yard line where they get in the end zone. And I don't know why, but they saved all their timeouts. Here we go, another onside kick. This one is also not going to be scooped up by the first player. So Missouri had a chance to pull off one of the best comebacks we have seen yet. That is the exact reason that we watched some of these all the way till the end, but they're going to hang on. It would have been like a 4-possession, 4th-quarter comeback if Missouri did. They were trailing by so much for the longest time to the point where I didn't even think they had a chance, but you saw with those onside kicks, they almost got back into it. If Illinois can just play the way that they did in those first 3 quarters, though, they're going to be in this imperialism for a while. Now we have Michigan up again, though, this time headed to the other side of the state. They already took out Western. Now it seems like they're going to try and take out Eastern. We've got to see all the unique fields, though. We saw the teal field, we saw the blue field. Now we're seeing the gray field. I don't have good news to report from this one, though. Eastern Michigan was losing 45-0 at one point. True freshman quarterback Bryce Underwood had no problems at all. But that's a good thing. This sets us up for a Michigan State matchup later on in this video. That is typically how the state plays out in imperialism. We are headed to Texas. I've heard they spent a lot of good money bringing in some transfers. We'll see how they perform. Of all the teams that they could be taking on, they're going to be taking on the Jayhawks up here. So they would have such a weird span of land if they won this. And either way, one of these teams is going to be in a much worse position because they're going to be touching like 15 schools. If you spend a lot of money on a roster, though, and you only scored 0 points against the Jayhawks, you have a right to be very upset. Maybe I'm not going to have to do my yearly Kansas rebuild this season. They're handling business again, getting that weird amount of territory. I want to count up how many schools they're touching. And it turns out it's only going to be 11. But if they end up taking over a territory like SMU's, that's where they're in a lot of trouble. They're already bordering way too many schools. They're most likely going to get attacked pretty soon. Appalachian State is next, though, headed south. Well, unfortunately for them, they did not get the draw against Coastal Carolina. They're playing close. But this would be the first time the Mountaineers would start a big program. There was no magic for Appalachian State against Davos Queen Clemson, though. 45-21. It's just going to be another one that does not finish close, which doesn't really surprise me. For a second, we were getting a lot of upsets, but those have seemed to slow down. We knew the chaos would not go on forever, but it will return at some point. And poor Boise State. This is a team that was able to take down Oregon, but now they're stuck playing again. This time against Washington State, who is the last team that I rebuilt. For every single one of these games, games up at the same time of day and weather. But for just once, I want to get a snow game since they seem to be so rare in Dynasty. I think they made them look a lot better this year, all for them to pop up like once every 7 years. And I don't think the Cougars had any type of advantage with this. I'm sure Boise, Idaho gets a lot of snow as well, but Washington State has just not played well. Maddox Madsen threw 2 interceptions. They only scored 23, and they were still able to win by 3 possessions. There's a reason the Cougars were my last rebuild, and now Washington is boxed into a corner. That is really good news if you're rooting for the Huskies, though, because it's going to be hard for other teams to reach them versus a school like Pittsburgh, who's already had to play multiple times and is again. What did I say? We might eventually get the Panthers versus Syracuse for this Northeast region. The winner of this rivalry will be the best team that's still up there. But I don't know what has happened to all the chaos and close games. I am so disappointed in Syracuse. They just let 31 points get dropped on their head. Obviously, Steve Angeli did not have a very good game. Well, you would imagine Eli Holstein had to do something right. It's just like we can't seem to get any thrillers anymore. And if we zoom out to the Northeast region, that entire one is great, besides UConn. Maybe Delaware counts as a part of the Northeast region as well. I don't know. Of the 2 new schools, they're the one that's not been touched yet. We saw Memphis take out Missouri State. Now they're trying to do more damage to small schools, this time against Western Kentucky, where it is just going to graze that little tip. The last team that went to the Hilltopper Stadium did not come out to be successful. It makes you wonder how, though, because Memphis just won 51-0. I mean, this is just ridiculous. Brendan Lewis didn't even have a solid game offensively. It's not like they rushed for 200, 300 yards either. Western Kentucky's offense was just that bad. They didn't just have a rough day. They had an extremely rough day, so they're wiped out. And we are getting closer and closer to having a top 75. Before that can happen, though, there's still a few more matchups that need to be played. And this next one should be extremely good between Notre Dame and Michigan. The big house is packed for it. And Bryce Underwood's got to get his team in field goal range because they're currently trailing by a point with about a minute left. He's thrown 3 interceptions, so that's on him. And he's taken a lot of time for a team that needs to have a bit more sense of urgency. The good thing for the Wolverines is with 2 timeouts left, that does allow them to still take checkdowns like this. And we'll see if they can keep this up. Another one when it gets them 4. There's only 17 seconds left now, and Bryce Underwood throws a pick trying to get them in field goal range. Notre Dame is going to hang on and take over half of the state of Michigan. I thought we were bound to see the Wolverines and Spartans play, but it's never going to happen. Just like that, the Fighting Irish have knocked out Michigan, changing up the map again. There's no telling what this is going to look like even 10, 20 rounds from now, because it just keeps on changing. I will say, though, a lot of the teams that have been able to gain a lot of territory haven't had to fight for it much. We've been seeing a lot of matchups between schools that have yet to play. And this is a perfect example of that. These 2 schools haven't had to do anything so far. This is going to be a rivalry as well, just between a lot smaller programs. And the Warhawks are not in the best of positions, trailing by 5. The thing is, though, they did this to themselves. It's their fault. Just a couple of minutes ago, they were up 16-14 until they fumbled it and let it get returned for a touchdown, which gave Louisiana Tech the lead. They almost just handed them another turnover on a silver platter as well. I'm not sure what they are doing, but at least they still have about 56 seconds on the clock, and they move the chains. They're actually going to come up to the line to spike the ball here. It is so weird to me how teams will operate differently in sim and how the sim works. Like, watch this. It instantly goes into the next play. It doesn't show any replays for 10 seconds. And that's the way it's supposed to work. I'm not sure what's up with that. YEA has 2 different settings for different stadiums. I enjoy spectating these a lot more, though, but this play call's awful. Never mind. They still have bad play calling, too. Louisiana Monroe has made it 3rd and 10, where their quarterback's trying to escape the pressure. But now, it's just doing a slow pan across the cheerleaders, the players. There's no urgency. I don't understand why this game functions the way that it does. But Louisiana Tech is going to hang on. They're going to get the rivalry win over Louisiana Monroe. And that is fully on the Warhawks. Like I said, they had a lead with a few minutes left, and they gave them a turnover. It does not surprise me, though. Memphis.
Pre-cut fruit and tasty juice. No fruit bowl snacks. Fruit your way.
Let's get the dollhouse back.
rescue mission. Wait, Tushy! My fashion! Scratch that. Sounded fabulous.
Life insurance. It meets your needs now. For when they need it most. With help from your State Farm agent. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Get a quote today.
Cannot be avoided. They're going for as much territory as they can possibly take. But they've run into a little bit of a tougher spot where they have to attack Ole Miss. This really doesn't benefit either of these teams. Nobody wants this much territory this early on. And we've stumbled across an interesting score in the final minute of this one. 20-15. You don't see it often. After that play, Memphis took their sweet time before snapping it again and dropping it. But now, on a 3rd and 2, they're going to move the chains. They would have been way better off just catching the last ball. There's not that much time left. 10 seconds on the clock. Brendan Lewis gets it out, and that was good. If they didn't drop it, it was over. With no timeouts, they're just going to have to send this one to the end zone. Unfortunately, that's going to lose them the game. You can see the time ticking down. They never got up to the line to spike the ball, and that'll do it. Again, though, this isn't really good for the Rebels. There's like 12 schools that are currently bordering their territory just with the way it's shaped. So it's safe to say they'll probably be getting attacked pretty soon. It looks like South Alabama is getting the land back. For a second, I thought Southern Miss was going to have to play again after coming off that one against LSU. And apparently, they are anyway, because South Alabama is attacking their territory. We're getting some Sunbelt on Sunbelt action, and it's going to be a good finish. As you see where the Jaguars are at, they need to go halfway down the field. That tackle alone was super clutch. It kept South Alabama inbounds, which means half of their time just ran off of the clock, but they still have a fighting chance. 8 seconds left. You cannot do anything besides send it to the end zone. And you don't want to catch the ball there because that's going to run out the last couple seconds. Well, the Southern Miss madness is going to continue for a little bit longer. They sure know how to close out a game. In fact, all the teams from Mississippi have so far. Jacksonville State is going to give another Alabama school another shot. In the last few years, they moved up to the FBS level. But they got a decent team that's about to take on UAB. Whenever I went down to Tuscaloosa early this year to play Ryan Williams for the early college football 2016, I flew into Birmingham, so I stayed there overnight, and I stayed at the hotel that visiting schools stay at whenever they go on the road to play. There was a really nice gym in there, and I say that because maybe it helped Jacksonville State be more prepared. Though I just thought about it, and Jacksonville State might be in Birmingham too. Never mind, it's like a lot of the other schools in Alabama. It's in a small college now. It's called Jacksonville. And I think it throws off a lot of people that it's not Jacksonville, Florida. Anyway, they're just currently trying to prevent overtime, which is close. If he hangs on to that football, that's where we're headed. But instead, they still got to score. After that completion, they had to use their final timeout. And what that means is there's only 10 seconds left by the time that they get up to the line. You can't be sitting here putting signals out right now. You need two plays at most to end this. This is it. Final play. And they get in. We're going to OT. There's no being aggressive here. They're just getting an extra point. That was a great comeback from UAB, though. We've seen so many drives fizzle out in the final seconds. Theirs did not. Huge started one. The Jacksonville State will convert. And just look at their helmet. They are beautiful. Those alone got me rooting for the Gamecocks because they're about to be on 3rd and 6. And we'll see what they've got drawn up here. They're sending it. 2 guys on him. And they knocked the ball loose. UAB can really do it. All they need is a touchdown. Wait, they missed the field goal too. I just saw the refs doing this. I can't believe that they just shanked that kick, but I've been waiting for a team to do it from the hash. For whatever reason, though, they are just obsessed with not ending it themselves because of a missed kick, so they'll do it here. UAB said, we're not going to miss our field goal attempt. We're just going to get the touchdown like that. And what a great matchup. The Blazers did a fantastic job of defending their home field. We are getting back in the rhythm of more entertaining football games. New Mexico, we have not gotten that state yet. There's only 2 teams out there. I've sent a couple disses that state probably is. I've just never been out there. All I can think of is it would be a bunch of deserts. These 2 teams always seem to end up playing in the Rio Grande rivalry in imperialism too. And it was a high-scoring shootout that New Mexico pulled away. Up until the very end, the Aggies had a lead. But early in the 4th quarter, New Mexico scored, then they scored again, then they scored again. It was a 29-point 4th quarter. You don't see that often. The second their offense started clicking, though, they took full advantage of it, so they're going to take home the state. And I've always wondered why those 2 teams aren't the same conference. It would just make sense location-wise. I know conference realignment makes none of these conferences make sense. but I'd like to see it. For our next game, Marshall is attacking the Cardinals, so the Cardinals are probably going to get more territory. Unfortunately for Marshall, they lost their head coach, they lost their entire roster, but I will be rooting for them. And that did not matter one bit. Louisville flattened them 41-17. There are a lot of good teams surrounding the Cardinals, though, which is going to make it pretty challenging to keep this up. Like always, Texas and the eastern half of the U.S. is looking a lot more competitive than the western half. But without Oregon out there, who typically just runs things, I can't wait to see how it plays out. As for Northern Illinois, the poor team is in a tough spot. They got 3 bigger programs surrounding them, and they're going to be taking on Wisconsin. The only thing they have going for them is their background color is gray, and all of those schools seem to have done well. But not the Huskies. They lost this one 45-13. When I compare this game simulation system to last year, there are a lot more blowouts, which is more realistic to college football. But from an imperialism standpoint, I just prefer 3-0. Anyway, SMU, they're getting to play. I think I said if they attack Kansas, that'd make all the territories look really weird. But the odds of an arrow pointing up this direction were so low. Instead, they're facing Sam Houston. In all honesty, this should be an easy snag for them. And I just have to wonder how the only points that Sam Houston was able to score was on defense with the safety. Their defense was more efficient on offense than their own offense. It's just a crazy metric to read. And these poor small schools are getting beat up on recently. Maybe USC can do the same thing. I'm pretty sure they have multiple ones surrounding them since all the other bigger schools lost. But that is not what the Arrow wanted. The Arrow wanted the Trojans to attack Arizona State, another threat out west. These two teams have got to be the best two that are still standing out there. It was not a competitive matchup, though. I think you can see why. USC is trailing by 20. And what they decided to do while trying to pull off a comeback was hand it off there and waste a lot of precious time. I don't know what's going on with the play calling, but it wasn't good. And the Sun Devils are going to continue to expand into the state of California. There's only a couple other teams that still have landed the state, UNLV and Nevada. It's just remarkable to me that there is already no teams left from California. The Arizona schools cannot be done either. Arizona gets landed on this time. And all that land that New Mexico just took over is on the line. Apparently, this is a rivalry game as well. I didn't realize that these two teams played that much. And apparently the Lobos have a solid team because they've been able to force overtime. This game is all tied up at 18, so I have to assume that both teams have only scored field goals. 12 total field goals is kind of crazy. After that sack, I'm not even sure if New Mexico is going to be able to get that out of this drive. And this is going to be a long and 3rd and 14. But they got it. New Mexico is not done yet. All they have to do is punch this one in. But they are short there, and they're going to try it again. I feel like they were closer than where it was spotted, and they're not going to make it again. There's no way. You know how people say there's like a magnet to the hoop if someone's drilling a bunch of shots? Well, there's something keeping these teams out of the end zone. It is absolutely brutal to watch them fail to score over and over. Maybe Arizona can figure it out, though. No Fafita goes down. And they are set up under center, looking like they're just going to run this ball and settle for a field goal. I guess they're still going to get it either way. We are headed to double overtime because neither team is able to reach the end zone. Wait, it's off the post, and it's in slow-mo, which makes it worse. You just have to slowly sit there and watch as Arizona can't beat New Mexico. I'm not sure what type of black magic they got going on down there in New Mexico, but the Lobos have it on their side. They're going to double their territory. You can add them to the list of small schools out west that are going to make a deeper run that I think works. As for FIU, their time might have come. They're not going to be attacking FAU. No, they're attacking south towards Miami. This is not what I was hoping for them. It's going to be a tough one for them to pull out. And I'm just glad that with 2 minutes left, it's not completely over. Deion Jenkins is going to have to get this 4th and 13 though. We need to convert to keep our chances alive, and we don't. At the end of the day, Miami's offense was just able to score 2 runs. They ended up having an extremely good 2nd and 4th quarter. It's going to leave them in a really good spot on the map because they are hard for teams to have to attack. Though I said the same about Boise State, and they've already gotten picked on multiple times. I guess they're not going to be content until they can take this entire portion. What they could end up doing, though, is handing over all of their hard work to Washington. I guess they weren't too worried about that, though. They went into this one confidently, winning by 25 points. So now they're going to be left alone up in the Northwest with only schools from the Mountain West Conference surrounding it. I think until we get later in this imperialism, Boise State might be in the best position of anybody. There's a wide open state in Montana that's next to them as well. Nevada is close, though. Of all the schools the wheel could have landed on, it landed on the Wolfpack. Now it's pointed up north. So I thought Boise State was going to be done playing fine, but they're not even close. It didn't even take a turn for them to get attacked again. But look at this score. Nevada just didn't have what it took. Boise State's going to take a knee, and the rivalry is going to go to the Broncos. It should not even be a question who's going to have the largest territory in the United States after this one. But even with all that land, I don't think that they're in an awful position. They're just not exposed over there. They have the ocean as one of their borders, Canada as another, Air Force is going to be next. We have been staying out west, going away from being on the east side. And basically every team out here has already played a game, especially since Colorado's about there. The Buffaloes are another team. When you look at the programs that are left out west, that you can't sleep on, they could take over the whole western side. And they were able to make it very clear that they aren't going to have any issues with Air Force winning this one 34-8. Compared to other teams around them, their territory might not seem like it's that big, but if you compare them out to schools in the east, it's a lot. I feel like there's just so much land out on the western side of the U.S. that has so much potential, but it's unused. Maybe it's the terrain or the heat of some of the desert areas that makes it difficult to build. But when I went out to Phoenix and then northern Arizona this past winter, it was just beautiful in the northern part of the state. This is not good, though, for Southern Miss. If I can get past my little yap session, you'll see Alabama's attacking the Golden Eagles. I still have no idea how Southern Miss was able to beat LSU because they just got obliterated, which mainly is to do with the fact that Ty Simpson had 3 passing touchdowns and 3 rushing touchdowns with 6 total. I was rooting for Southern Mississippi. I was hoping that they do well, but they got the worst draw in this area they possibly could have.
There's no greater classroom than the great outdoors. That's why Nature Valley and the National Park Foundation are helping kids across America experience the wonder of nature. Life happens out there.
Something new is wrong with the app. 29% off wellness every day it's cheaper. From vitamins to clean sports nutrition, even pet wellness. Every day brings a new reason to come back and say, shop the best collection of trusted wellness brands. 29% off all month long.
Welcome to Visible, the ultimate wireless app. It's one line powered with unlimited data on Verizon's 5G network for just $19 a month for 1 year, guaranteed. But you already knew all that, didn't you?
At JustWorks, we know these aren't just your employees, they're your people. People like Lisa. She's the type to get all type A on her timesheets.
I'm a freaking sheets.
Good to know. You do your human resources right, so you can do right by your people. JustWorks, for your people.
Or Tulane is now boxed in by Alabama, and that is just one of the underdog stories that has had to come to an end. Illinois is a team that I could still see making a deep run, by the way, if they don't get a lot of territory. The problem with that is they're going for a lot of territory as they're attacking Ole Miss, and we're about to see if this is the time where the Mississippi schools crumble, or it's just one of them. Well, all I have to report on from this game is Ole Miss scored 3 points, so Illinois blew them out. Austin Simmons didn't even throw for 100 passing yards, so there was no tape battle to end to see who won. They didn't stand a chance. Now, I did just realize that I have flown through the top 75. I have flown through the midway point of heroism because there's only 61 teams that are still standing. So if your school's still sitting here on the map, you've been able to perform over half the schools in the country. Now, I'm looking at you, Ball State fans. If you haven't had to play a single game, it doesn't mean that much. But for a school like Boise State that cannot avoid attacks, it means a lot. Speaking of avoiding attacks, though, that is exactly what they just did, taking over the Open State. Yes, when I do imperialism with the FCS schools, it will be filled up, but it's not in this one. As for the state of Texas, that's where the most schools in the state are in the country, so it's full. There were plenty of options for the Longhorns to face, but instead, they've touched this piece of Kansas's territory up here. So they're attacking the Jayhawks. With how many teams are surrounding these two teams' territories, combine that, and this is awful news for either one of these programs. And look at this game as we head into the final last 2 minutes. Jalen Daniels is keeping Kansas in this one alongside their defense. They've only given up 28 points. But what was that read? If Texas just catches that ball, this one's basically over. They decided they were going to send some pressure here, and they set up another prayer. Jalen Daniels better make a play on 4th and 10, or else this one is going to be over. It's nice to see Kansas putting up a fight, though. They didn't just let Texas walk them. He's taking a shot, and that one can't be caught. At first, I didn't see the safety back there. I thought they just burned them. This is not good. Even if Kansas could get the ball back still, since they have one more timeout. The main issue is I think Texas is in field goal range. Why is Arch Manning throwing it What are they doing? The Longhorns made this as hard as possible on themselves, but they hit the field goal. And from that point, Kansas was not going to come back. This has got to be the weirdest territory we have ever seen on Imperialism, though. It's going to start all the way at the bottom of Texas, where it borders Mexico, and go all the way up to the most north point of Kansas. Because some of these other teams out west have lost, though, it's only bordering 11 different programs. So that is the benefit of being farther into Imperialism now. Where are we headed now? Not Boise State again. I also just noticed that there's a color on the arrow of that wheel, so I'll have to squint to decide what school it landed on. And this is going to be a rematch of the Mountain West Conference Championship game last year for Moore Lane. Boise State is really taking over right now. They are trying to assert their dominance. And I'll tell you this, they're doing a great job of it. 44-10. No problem at all. Even without having Ashton Genty on the team, Maddox Madsen has been carrying the Broncos. There just doesn't seem to be any stopping them at the moment, though you have to wonder if they're ever going to get sick and attacked. I don't think we've ever seen a school get this much land before we're even inside the top 50. There's got to be something wrong with this wheel. I mean, how did it land on them again? I guess the next territory that they're going for is Wyoming. And with their current track record, I don't think there's going to be anything interesting for us to spectate. Well, with it being a 10-point game with a minute left, you might think it's over. But the Cowboys still have all three of their timeouts, and they're in a really good spot on the field. So we're going to see if they actually still have some hope. No way he catches that. That's a sick catch. The corner had no idea the ball was even coming. All he could do was put his hand up. As for the onside kick, I mean, they were never going to get that. But they still could get the ball back by stopping the run. Though it's not looking likely with some of these gaping holes to just run through. Wyoming gave Boise State a good scare. A scare that they probably needed, but they couldn't pull it off. Boise State wins again. After that result, though, maybe this is when their expansion slows down. There are a couple open states to their right side that I'm sure they'd love to get. It's just like with only a few teams bordering them, it feels improbable for the wheel to select them another time. You never know, though. It would be pretty crazy if it happened. We're not even near the teams. Instead, we were on Wisconsin, who's already been able to win once. And this is an interesting spot where they're pointed towards Michigan State. I don't think we've ever had this happen before. I'm not sure if these two things are even actually connected up there. But we're just going to pretend that they are, so the Badgers can attack the Spartans. It's going to be a classic as well, at least from the defensive perspective. They played what? Wait, what just happened there? Did he run out of bounds and just throw it 10 yards down the field? I feel like I'm just seeing stuff sometimes. Anyway, both defenses have played really well. It's been another one of those games where outside of one touchdown, basically all the points have come off of field goals. Michigan State needs to lock in, though, because Wisconsin is making a lot of progress. Billy Edwards Jr. is starting to get into a rhythm, but his receivers are dropping it. How can you expect this man to save Wisconsin and tear apart the defense when he's getting no help? I mean, his offensive line just did a great job. So maybe he is getting some help. But we'll see what time is remaining by the time that they're done celebrating and they get up to spike the ball. Just 7 seconds, and they didn't spike it. They're sending up a prayer that they're able to swat. But that was a very smart decision. You see if you can get the back shoulder throw to work. If you can't, then you have another opportunity to go for the end zone. 3 seconds left. Wisconsin for the win. Billy Edwards Jr. throws up another one. And why? They just tested the same corner twice. He's going to feel like the man on campus. That receiver was probably so confident as well, just saying, give me another chance. I promise. I got it this time. I got it beat. And then he did. That didn't really put Michigan State in a great spot, though. They're pretty exposed with their lane. And there's just no way these teams out west are not sick of attacking each other. Either Boise State or Arizona State's about to have basically all of this. This is clearly the most important and the biggest game that we've had in this Imperialism yet. And it seems like Boise State has finally met a team that can handle them. Just a little over 90 seconds left. They're trailing by 12, but they're going to score a touchdown here. They're not out yet. What they're going to need, though, is either an onside kick or a defensive stop with their 3 timeouts that they've saved. I think it's pretty smart to just give it back to the Sun Devils and lean on your defense. The chance of the onside kick going your way, it's got to be less than 10%. The computer handles these spots, though, a lot smarter than they did in the last game, which is going to be hard on Boise State. It's not guaranteed that they're just going to run it 3 times. They'll mix in passes, they'll mix in RPOs, and that's that. There's nothing the Broncos can do. Sam Levitt's going to just just take a knee and end it. Boise State isn't necessarily an underdog, but it was cool to see a group of 5 team make such a big impact. They were just one successful drive away from being able to keep it up too, but instead, Arizona State ruined their part. And with only 23 points, basically the entire western U.S. is going to be Sun Devil territory. I see Hawaii just sitting there at the bottom of the map though. Maybe they're waiting for their turn. If they came in out of nowhere with a surprise attack and took it all over, it'd be pretty crazy. As for Mississippi State, they're going for the land that Ole Miss wants control, which is exactly why I said it wasn't a good thing that Fighting Illini expanded so much so early. I guess dealing with the Bulldogs wasn't the biggest problem for them though. They did let them score. They put up 36. Just an absolute show of utter dominance that they're going to have to keep up with 14 schools bordering it. Considering there's only 55 schools left, that's like 25% of the teams remain. But maybe for some of those, with where their land is situated, they don't have a chance at attacking Illinois. And I can say that because for schools like Oklahoma that are bordering, the odds of that happening very low. But you know where that arrow was pointed. We're getting the Red River Rivalry. Here's the thing though, Texas fans aren't going to like this. Even if I wanted to, I can't change the stadium location to the Longhorn Stadium. It's going to be at the Cotton Bowl, so they're not going to get their home field advantage for defending their territory. This is where this game is meant to be played though. It's going to be close. The Sooners trailing by 4 points with 100 seconds remaining. But John Mateer just got him a first down. He's going to give them 5 more. And with a minute remaining, they should get out of bounds. Here we go. 3rd and inches. I thought they had the first down, but as long as they get something, they'll be fine. Those timeouts are dwindling away though, so you really want to get out of bounds again. There's only 30 seconds remaining because it's taking so much time off the clock. And that's why they just used their last timeout. They probably got a solid 3 plays left, though. That's helpful. It gives them the flexibility to make another short read like this. But look at that clock just running away. As you're sitting there smiling, you need to be hurrying. I'm not liking the lack of sense of urgency here. John Mateer, snap the ball. Snap the ball. That's how you're going to lose the Red River Rivalry. They're just not going to get off another play. Texas gets to survive. The Sooners didn't even end up getting a good shot off to the end zone. They're just going to end up losing because they were not hurting. And of the teams left on this map, a lot of these guys have already played a game or two. There's just a lot of programs in Texas, this Virginia area, that still have not gotten into it. And of course, I can't forget about Delaware because I'm following them pretty closely. Now with this arrow continuing to say red right here, that lets me know it actually landed on Toledo. I'll have to squint at it, and they're going to be playing to the northwest. That is not good news for the Rockets, though, is they're going to have to take on Notre Dame. Of all the teams in the MAC, I'd say the Rockets had the best chance at making a deep run. But because they ran into Notre Dame, there wasn't that much that they could do. They were set up for failure. That is the simplest way I could put it. And with no luck of playing perfectly and pulling off the upset, they've been eliminated. Georgia Tech also has a lot of big schools around them, so if they want to stay in, they're going to have to play well, especially since that arrow is directed up towards Clemson. I'd like to think that with how good Georgia Tech's offense might be, they could stay in this game. But when you all see the final score, you'll see that getting points on the board isn't the whole story. Their defense couldn't do anything to stop Kate Klubnik and the Clemson offense. They gave up 44 points, 444 total yards of offense. So even if they would have scored 35, it wouldn't have been enough. Just from what I've been able to see in Sim, I feel like having a strong defense is a lot more important than having a strong offense. You've got to be able to prevent those high-scoring shootouts or else you're going to be eliminated. Virginia Tech is a team that's already played once, and they did pretty well. They also have a great opportunity to do well again because they're about to go on the road at Coastal Carolina. The last team that went on the road at Teal Field did not come out on top, but I just can't escape the blowouts. The Hokies have been incredible so far. They held Coastal to 0 points. We're just going through waves with how these matchups pan out. Either we get a bunch of upsets and shockers, or we just get blowout after blowout. Part of that does have to do with who the wheel matches up against each other, but we've seen a lot of surprises. Pittsburgh could get matched up against a small school here and still really struggle, but they aren't even going to get that luxury as the arrow is going to direct them towards Maryland. I saw the Terrapins as one of the teams I should rebuild first on this game, so they shouldn't win this. And guess what? It turns out they performed exactly how we would have all expected them to, losing by 20. There was one surprising part about this game, though, and it was Eli Holstein not through the air. He struggled there, but it was him on the ground rushing for almost 120 yards. He had a great time in this one, just further expanding all of the Panthers' lane. And I just noticed West Virginia is sharing a huge border with Pittsburgh, which means we might get a backyard brawl from all of that Northeast region. We have also hit the top 50, so I guess that's important too. Is your team still in it? That is what I'm wondering. Virginia Tech getting a chance to play again. this time against the Cardinals, where both of these teams have won multiple games. If we were to finally get a tight one again, I'd expect it to be this. And sure enough, a lot is on the line with a minute remaining. Tyron Drones currently has Virginia Tech at the 31-yard line. He is trying to help his team get that game-winning touchdown. But after that stop, it's going to be 4th and 5. I know they still have 3 timeouts, but I'd say the game is on the line right here, and they bring him down. So it looks like the Cardinals are going to snag another win unless Virginia Tech can stop the run. Does this look like a box that's about to stop the run right here, though? Because to me it doesn't. I can see a wide open hole that's going to get him first. And what that means is Isaac Brown has ended this game. Louisville's just going to continue to win. That's the way that it's got to be. They have 11 schools bordering them, though, so they're not making it easy to keep on staying in. Eventually, they're going to be attacked again. Georgia State's doing the attack in this situation. I guess the Panthers believe they have what it takes to take down Clemson. They just coasted to a top 50 finish and then immediately got aggressive. For taking on one of the top teams in the country on the road as well, they didn't play that poorly. I mean, they only scored 13 points, but they held Clemson to 30, and what they have given us is an even higher chance that Georgia and the Tigers end up playing in the future. That would be an extremely good game. Tennessee could give us one here, too. I have no idea what their ceiling is going to be this season since they lost Nico. And I guess Clemson's playing in another matchup because they're getting attacked by the Volunteers. I really should have kept a tracker of who's able to win the most games throughout Imperialism, and I'm just thinking about ideas I could do in the future for Imperialism, where the highest winning team in Imperialism gets a spot in the championship, and then the other spot is the last team standing. I just think it'd be a great way to incentivize winning more, but it'd be a lot to track. So let's just focus on this for now, where Clemson is losing by 3. They better get in field goal range. This is not good news for the Tigers, and they handed it off for whatever reason. I guess it's going to make this 3rd down a lot more manageable, but Cade Klubnik throws it straight to the Volunteers, and that is how Clemson's going to lose. This is not a good time to be a Kentucky fan. We still got Florida, Tennessee, Louisville, all in Imperialism. Even Vanderbilt's still in Imperialism, but that's more of a friendly rivalry to me. I don't get too worked up about it. At least until recently, where they've started to get a little bit better. This is what the U.S. is looking like. You're seeing a lot of yellow, a lot of orange, and a lot of gray. I don't think we have ever had this color combination before. Now, if I remember what UAB did, they had a close one that they just pulled out. I think it was against Jacksonville State, too. But they're going to be attacking Tennessee. We're going to see more and more teams having back-to-back games, though, as there are fewer teams still on the map. And Tennessee taking over Clemson's territory just means they also have to take over the rights to obliterate most of the teams that play. That was not a good game, and it does make this map even more orange than it needs to be. It's starting to get hard to see whose territory is whose. So hopefully, sometime soon, one of those teams ends up losing. TCU's purple, though, so they're not going to contribute to that. But I guess they could take away all the territory that Texas currently has. Ever since the Horned Frogs made it to the national championship and got blown out, I feel like I've heard nothing about it. But I guess they're going to have a pretty decent squad this season, as they've been able to score a lot. They didn't get blown out by Texas. They've been able to put up 31. But after completing their next pass inbounds, they didn't even have a chance to potentially score, get the onside kick. It's just going to be over. If any team's going to take out some of these big schools in this Imperialism, it's going to be hard. I still think there's a lot less fluke in this game system compared to college football 25. But it could also have to do with the fact that the overalls are so much different. Up in this region, you're going to see a lot of schools that haven't really been touched, but Old Dominion has unfortunately been forced to attack too. And the game sim just tends to be on the side of the Blue Devils. Not in this situation, though. Somehow, the Monarchs are up by 2 possessions, so this one's over. Duke isn't even going to get off another snap. The main problem they ran into is their offense didn't get things going until the 4th. But that's a good thing, because we are right back on track to seeing upsets and shocking results. Old Dominion's extra exposure with more territory, too, shouldn't hurt them that much, just based off of the spot it's in. But Texas has to play again. They're not content with all the land they already have, so they're going to be going after the miners. That makes them very similar to some Minecraft YouTubers I grew up watching, sadly. There was no stopping Texas here either. They just won by 35. And I just noticed in the bottom left corner, Hawaii has snuck their way here without having to do a thing. I end up forgetting about them a lot in Imperialism, but they're one of the few teams out west that's still on the map. I'd say of the 43 left, there's 6 that currently are, and not Delaware. They were having such a good run, never getting landed on. That has changed though, especially since they're attacking Rutgers. For the Blue Hens to not get eliminated here, it's going to take them playing at a very high level. And I am afraid they did not bring their A game to the birthplace of college football. Now this camera angle, I don't know what they were showing us there, but you can see this one. Just absolutely fantastic camera work on display. Delaware is so tiny that they're really hard to erase. I'm really impressed though that the state is able to have a Division I football program. New Mexico, we're headed out west to one of those 6 teams. This is most likely just going to be pointed towards Texas. Of all this land, the Longhorns took up a good portion of their border, and this is not good. Texas has been running rampant, taking over everything, and nothing's going to change here. They were easily the better team. With the odds of an upset being at like 5%, I was just prepared to take New Mexico off of the map. And the Longhorns still aren't close to having as much land as Arizona State, but they're giving them a little bit of competition. I still think it'd be hilarious if Hawaii just came out of nowhere and took all of it over. That is what I am currently rooting for. Alabama, they're going to be south. And that puts them up against the Florida Gators because they hit this part of their territory that they took from Florida State. This is an interesting matchup. The Crimson Tide have to go on the road to the swamp. What this has done is it's given Alabama a hard test. These teams are currently all tied up at 28, but you see where the Crimson Tide are, and they're not getting it up. The Gators just had a massive goal line stand, forcing Alabama to take their 3 where they're not even going to hit it. I can't believe what we're currently watching. It could have easily been 35 to 28, even 31 to 28, but it's tied. Now they're most likely just going to take it to overtime. There's absolutely zero urgency out of DJ Lagway, but we'll see if they get a huge game here, and they don't. It looks like Alabama's going to get the first drive once we've made it to overtime. So we'll see what Kalen DeBoer's got drawn up, feeding it over to one of his receivers. My thoughts on that are if you're going to put someone on a bubble, put Ryan Williams on that bubble. We got some motioning going on, immediately hitting the flat. Ty Simpson's got to make a deeper read at some point, though. We can't just be running RPOs and jet touch passes. Maybe Alabama will at least drill this kick, which they do. Now, DJ Lagway hits him with play action for their first play. They go to the end zone, and it's knocked out. I thought they were about to catch that off of the deflection. I do not want this game to drag on and on. But did anybody on Florida block? I feel like 4 dudes just got in DJ Lagway's face. What are they doing? I mean, he doesn't have any time back there. They're going to have to kick 3, but it's going to have to be a 57-yard kick to send it to double overtime in slow motion. I'm watching the refs. It's hard to tell if it goes in. It did. But we know what Florida's offense did the last time. I mean, they can't run the ball. They can barely throw it. And we'll see what they got drawn up on 3rd and 10. No one was out there guarding the running back. That was great play design. But what type of running back wears number 13? His name is Jaden Ball, and he's been sent out on another quick flat route. If I'm Alabama, I know DJ Lagway's going to be staring into his soul on 3rd and 7. And that's when he switches it up and goes somewhere else. It's looking like the Crimson Tide are going to need a touchdown if they're going to be able to respond. And for the 2-point conversion to go up by 8 points, I saw a slam. Wide open, what are we doing? That just opened the door for Alabama to get right back in it as they start off beating Ryan. When Kalen DeBoer allows Ty Simpson to throw more than 2 yards down the field, he tends to do well. I thought that ball was going to be intercepted, though. It looked like it was going to be. And it seems like we are about to have a big play. This is it. Game on the line. This is where Alabama could end up surviving, and they just hand it off, which works out. They had to fight as hard as they could for this win, but they got it. I can't say this benefits them that much, though, because now they're going to have Georgia on their border as well. Plus, Miami could end up coming up from Florida and facing it. It's better than losing, though, that's for sure. Hawaii cannot be selected now. I had the dreams of them making it far. They're going to be attacking in Texas's direction. They are the one school where they can attack over bodies of water, but that just leads them here. The longer this imperialism goes on for, the less probable an underdog story seems to be. But I guess my long wait to have another potential upset, a crazy result, has paid off. Because look at the current situation, great play. Going on the road in a stadium where the stadium pulse is tough. Michael Alcedo's kept his team in, and I don't know what field goal range looks like for the Rainbow Warriors, but they are close. Once Texas starts calling their 3 timeouts, that's when it gets real. That's when we'll know that they're a real threat to score. But Texas still is not calling any. You would think they'd want their chance to get the ball back. Maybe they'll start calling them after this play. But they still have not used any of them. So does Hawaii just have an awful kicker? Okay, that wasn't a fumble. It looked like a fumble. At this point, just send your kicker out there. Get those 3 points. If they weren't doing this right now, I would fully expect them to mess things up. Texas almost blocked that kick. There's a flag. If this goes in, just decline the penalty. Just decline. What that has done for them is they have their lead, and now they just need to stop Texas. I don't know why they couldn't just grab that interception, but Arch Manning has one final chance to get his team in field goal range, and they're not going to come close. You have to just send up a 50-50 ball down the sideline. It's wild to me that he's thrown for over 300 yards, but 0 passing touchdowns. He didn't have interceptions either. Hawaii gets an interception on the final play, though, and the Rainbow Warriors have probably pulled off the most shocking upset of this imperialism. Those wild results always seem to be on the games that I expect to be over before they even start. And I know this current map with just under 40 teams looks very chaotic and random, but you still have programs like Ohio State, Georgia, and Alabama on here that are probably going to make a deep run. Notre Dame and Miami are still there too, but outside of that, it's a lot of schools that I was not expecting to be here, which is great. It's why we love imperialism. I'm glad it can still be this way. As for Virginia, it's a close call, but I am going to sit here and say that's getting West Virginia's land. That might be my most controversial call yet, but what we have is 2 teams that have not had to play. And I truly thought the Mountaineers would do better than they did. Chandler Morris transferred to Virginia, who helped them put up a lot of points, while West Virginia didn't get things going until the 4th quarter. So one orange team falls in Texas, and then another one starts to get a little bit of momentum. But Virginia's got a long way to go out in this region. I really don't think it's too much of a long shot for them, though, if you just see the other schools surrounding them. And Minnesota has just been chilling up near the top. They haven't had to do much, but now they're getting forced to attack Michigan State. So we will see what happens in their first game. Well, Drake Lindsey's going to need a miracle for the Gophers if they're going to pull this one off. That's a good touchdown, though. They still have a fighting chance. And here we go. Onside kick is not going to be picked up by the Spartans. These are the moments that we sit here and watch for, but they have to get in field goal range while getting out of bounds. That is the toughest part about this. That's not going to happen. Minnesota has no timeouts left. You see the clock running as we're getting an ass. So even though it seemed like they were about to pull it off, Michigan State's mascot can celebrate with the fans because there will not be a comeback. If only they still had just a couple of timeouts sitting around, that would have made a massive difference there because there wasn't enough time. Oh well, though, back to the wheel, which gets us to Rice or Rutgers. It's going to be Rice. I can't remember whether or not they did anything early on, but they've not had to play for a while with South. I really don't think they played anybody, though, because there's no one that would be in this portion of territory. I just think since they're closer to Houston, I put them up here. Anyway, they're attacking Houston. This is a rivalry that comes with the trophy, so it's more than just staying in imperialism. This game did not really go well for one of the 2 teams involved, though. It was 55-0. In fact, Houston was able to rotate between 2 different quarterbacks that had even passing attempts because they dominated that much and forced 4 interceptions. Either way, though, there was probably no hope for Rice in the long run. They have teams like Texas A&M around us, so they had been taken off of the wheel, and now we're going to get Pittsburgh again. There is one school around the Panthers that could be a bit of a problem. It's Ohio State. That arrow is not directed towards the Buckeyes, though. It's going to be Virginia's land. The land they just took from West Virginia, but I'm not going to doubt the Panthers anymore. That is only if they can close this game out the right way. They just lost a lot of yards, so it seems like they're about to kick. Unless Eli Holstein can hit a slant in the end zone, which he does, all of a sudden Panthers are going to have a 4-point lead. But there is time for a response, which means their defense needs to lock in and just wrap up in bounds. That's all you have to do. If the Cavaliers aren't going to burn their first of many timeouts, then it's super helpful. Chandler Morris better start going for some deeper shots down the field or a 15-yard run. That was still solid, but this isn't great. They are left with 1 timeout and 21 seconds on the clock. It seems like Pittsburgh's about to get another win. With no timeouts left now, they're going to take another check down. You can't make this up. Virginia's knocking off another play. They're losing. It was smart from Pittsburgh, though. They backed everybody up. They gave them those underneath throws, and then that's what they took. What I really thought Pitt was going to do was take over the Northeast region, but instead they've been starting to move down and taking over more territory outside of it. What it's done is it's left programs like UMass, UConn, Rutgers, Navy still in this thing. They're getting the Boston College treatment of just coasting to the end without having to do much. But the second these big schools start moving out, they're going to just wipe out some of these parts of the map. Before they can do that, though, they have to get through a tough test based off of geography. Georgia is going to be playing at Tennessee, and the winner of this could very well be the team that ends up coming out of the southeast portion of the map. It was not the game I was expecting, though. You can see him celebrating. Georgia won. They won with Gunnar Stockton throwing the ball 43 times as well as they took down Tennessee 34-13. Going on the road, it did not scare them, it did not challenge them, and as of right now, they are my pick to win this entire thing. You can make your pick as well if your favorite team's not in this anymore, if they couldn't make it this far. What would be super interesting is if Notre Dame and Ohio State matched up. That is not the case though. Instead, the Fighting Irish are trying to take over all the land that Illinois has acquired. Believe it or not, this is just as impactful of a matchup as the last one we just watched. But do you think this was a competitive game? Because it wasn't. 45-10. How did Illinois do that? I thought if they won, they might squeeze it out like 20-17. We get to see it come down to the wire, but that was not the case. They took their home field advantage. Luke Altmaier threw for 6 touchdowns, and they crushed it. They crushed it. That's how they've continued to do so well. At this point, when we zoom out and look at the entire United States, it's safe to say you can't sleep on the Fighting Illini either. They've been able to pull off impressive win after impressive win. A lot of them beat blowouts, and I'm not sure about Arkansas State. I think they might have beat Arkansas early on, and we haven't heard from them since. They just got their matchup against Louisiana Tech. And so shout out to both of these schools for even making it this far in the first place. Also, shout out to these two teams for giving us a great one that's going to end in a classic, I think. Louisiana Tech just took 40 seconds off of the clock for no reason at all. It's going to force them to use their final timeout. So unless they're taking shots to the end zone, they complete anything short, and they don't get out of bounds, this one's over. There it is. Arkansas State makes the tackle they needed. And as we pan around the stadium, they just have to accept the fact that they're not going to be able to beat the Red Wolves. I am begging EA to fix that. At least have some sort of sense of urgency shown where they're trying to get up to the line to get off the snap. That's what really needs to be there instead of what it currently is. Now, poor Ball State has avoided attacking anyone. They made it this far, but their first game is against the Fighting Illini. And I'm not even going to jinx it by saying what I want to about Illinois. I guess just putting that idea out there, though, was enough to jinx them. Because the same football program we just watched manhandle Notre Dame is only up by 7. They could still come up clutch and get their defensive stop, but they're not going to. I hope Ball State goes for it. If they take it to overtime, it's going to be harder for them to win. But they're playing scared, so overtime, here we come. I can say that because Illinois is not going to be aggressive here. The computer typically isn't. Maybe they are, though. I've just watched them take it to overtime so many times from that position, but this is different. They only need about 20 more yards, and they still have 2 timeouts to make it happen. What will really make the difference, though, is whether or not they throw for like a 5-yard completion here. They got enough. I might be speaking highly about their kick, but I expect him to have a pretty good shot from this position, as that one is going to miss. Never mind. Ball State still has their opportunity for an upset, as we're going to be headed to overtime. By the way, another weird thing I picked up on, the computer doesn't run right, is Hail Marys. Last year, they take their time, they throw it up to the end zone. This year, they throw it in like 2 seconds. It makes absolutely 0 sense. And we will see what Ball State's got drawn up on this next play. It's a draw. You just can't have that there. At least the running lanes are wide open, though. That gets them to the 1. Hugh Ashley has 115 yards on the Fighting Illini in this game. They want to continue to give him the rock in this situation, and I rarely see it work out, but he had a gaping hole. And normally Ball State sits in a very, very good position, and getting a sack there only helps their case. Luke Altmaier better have a dot dialed up. He throws it to the end zone, and why would they press? All of a sudden, it is completely flipped. I don't have much faith in Ball State, but if the Fighting Illini aren't going to make catches, if they're just going to let the ball bust in their face, then there was a chance for Ball State to generate this, except they gave up a touchdown. Just when I think they're about to do something right, they're giving up. And the Cardinals are going to have a miracle if they win. They're not feeding it to their running back, though. In fact, Blake Kelly just stepped in. Now they're sitting out there in 5 wide, so they've completely switched up their offensive strategy. And on 3rd and goal, they continue to drop back and throw it, but it worked out for them. What I will be very interested in, though, is this 2-point conversion play call. Are they going to try and run against a very stacked box versus what they have on their offensive line? Or are they going to continue to throw the rock? I was expecting them to throw it, but that's going to do it. Ball State put in all of that effort to fall short in the final seconds. That could have been one of the top wins in this Imperialism, but it didn't happen. And that leaves us with 31 teams left on the map. There's so few now that you can actually double check that number by counting yourself. We are getting closer and closer to having the first full Imperialism winner of college football 26. And this is where Miami might start to come out of that corner they've been in, where the 0 points doesn't mean a thing. There's only one direction they can go, and it's against FAU. What I've learned over the few years of doing Imperialism is the Hurricanes are in a great spot, but not if they're going to struggle against teams like FAU, who they're barely beating. In fact, I would have thrown a flag there as a ref just to make things more interesting for a late hit. But he was being nice to the Hurricanes. FAU still has a long way to go in a limited time. They're not exactly set up for success, but just the fact that they're in it and have a chance is all that matters. On 4th and 5, the Hurricanes only sent 3. They dropped 8 guys back into coverage, but they couldn't guard that one play. And this is where I'm already preparing myself. I know I'm going to get frustrated with the computer AI. That was actually a good read, and it would work out in that scenario because they'd be able to spike the ball in time, but they're not going to get off another snap because of how the game works. So Miami makes their win. I've been asking for a patch on that for over a year now. And here's the thing. It works inside Dynasty, but it doesn't inside Play Now. It's so weird how the game modes are similar. Like, the gameplay you get inside Road to Glory is different than the gameplay you're going to get inside Dynasty. It just doesn't make sense why it's that way, but it is. That's how it's built. At least it feels like it's that way. Anyway, for our matchup, we got Texas A&M attacking SMU. Of the teams that are still standing in Texas, I'd say these are the best two. And it's given us a classic, as we are currently sitting in overtime with these teams tied up at 24. Kevin Jennings currently has his team sitting at the 13. And on 2nd and 10, he's going to keep it, juke to the outside, get a block, but he cut in. I think he could have taken that to the crib if he just stayed going towards the sideline. Now they're going to have a tough decision as it's marked as 4th and inches. They're just going to kick their field goal, and at least they make it. But Texas A&M wins this game with a touchdown. They force a fumble, though. SMU takes it home. The Aggies cannot help themselves by losing in a heartbreaking fashion. What a result out of overtime for SMU to be able to pull it off with a forced fumble. Very unique. And that just gives me another team that I'm going to have to root for now as we get through the rest of this video. Miami has gotten the wheel. We know already who they're going to attack. This doesn't matter again. They are cornered into the state of Florida, so the only team that they can attack on land is up here in Tuscaloosa. This is just another enormous game that'll most likely determine who wins the entire thing. And before we start spectating this one, I want you to take a look at Alabama's last 5 play calls. They have been runs to Ryan Williams 5 times in a row. They have done that despite being down by 14 points. There was like 30 seconds left. They ran the clock all the way down to this final play. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what they're thinking, but Hurricanes are going to get the win. They're going to take down Alabama, and they're about to get a lot more land than they've had. It might be a good thing Kentucky's no longer in this thing, because if they were making as brain dead of mistakes as I have been seeing, I would be very upset. The good thing about the computer being brain dead half the time, though, is this is something we've dealt with through all of Imperialism history. NCAA Football 14, College Football Revamped, College Football 25, and now 26. All of them have had brain dead AI. With each iteration, it seems to get a little bit better, but there's still way too many mistakes. And I've just accepted it's never going to be perfect. Anyway, we got Cincinnati attacking Louisville here. It's the battle for the keg of nails, though I don't think they play it that often. And it's not been that great of a matchup, actually. Louisville down by 14, trying to come back, though that won't help. And at one point, it was 24-3, though onside kick, and it's not over. That was the perfect throw that they needed from Miller Moss. And here we go. It bounces over the head of the first players. They dropped it, but then they scoop it up, which is good. For a split second there, I was actually rooting for Louisville just because I wanted to see the chaos. But now that the result is set in stone, I'm happy that Cincinnati has been able to knock them out. There was a long period of time where the Cardinals were simply not losing, but that's come to an end. We knew that eventually, for basically every team in this Imperialism, they're going to lose. It's just how long can they drag it out for? That's always the question. And something that helps Michigan State here is there's an open state that is closer to them than anybody else. Despite getting landed on, they did not have to attack, which is extremely helpful. Though Tulane is going to have to here. We know that they're trapped in by one school. It's just no longer LSU. It's no longer Alabama. This time, it's going to be Miami. Come to think of it, they might have the worst starting point on the map because they're trapped in by either LSU or a team that can beat LSU every single time. Due to that, I don't think they've ever had a lot of success in Imperialism, and that trend is going to continue with this one. I can't believe that they only put up 3 points there. That's just just not going to get the job done. They really didn't give Miami an ounce of competition, and this is the final game before the top 25. We have not had to head out west for a very long time. This is where that changes, though, and unfortunately for Utah State, they're dealing with an attack. After they took down BYU or Utah, it was one of the two. They just coasted their way through this. And sure enough, they are still solid as they sent this one to overtime. In the final few minutes of regulation, Bryson Barnes had a drive, and he was able to tie things up. Then Colorado did nothing with it at all. He's going to run to the one. So someone has decided to start taking over. All they got to do is get like an extra yard here. But they're being kept out of the end zone on the ground, so they went through the air, and it worked out. On the other side of things, we got Caden Salter trying to respond. He's dealing with a maxed out stadium pulse, though it's Utah State. I'm not sure what the effect is. They were able to knock that one loose, and then he had an overthrow, but at the last second, this safety just lowered his head into that guy, and it's going to cost them. That's going to spot the Buffaloes on the 1 yard line. They're going to punch it in from here, and we'll see if they can continue that success on their next drive, because that was a filthy spin. Now they're going to go with back-to-back runs, which have not gotten them much. So I'd expect them to go back to the air on 3rd and 4, which they are clearly going to do, and it looks like Utah State just didn't get the pressure in time. 2-point conversion is very important as well, though, and Utah State stopped him on the goal line. It looked like he was about to reach across. That was a great stonewall, though, and Bryson Barnes goes down. That was not what you wanted to see. He's about to take another sack. It has been a pretty rough last couple of plays, and it's going to follow up with another as it is tipped.
Want to take the next step with Entivio? Then it's time to talk to your healthcare provider. With Entivio, you may be able to pay as little as $5 per dose. Plus, our team can help connect you with additional support programs. Hold up.
Onboarding benefits, time off requests, fixing payroll, yes,
Was that necessary?
No. Paycom automates everything. Get Paycom. They make the unnecessary unnecessary.
Sometimes it takes a different approach to see the possibilities all around you. At Capella University, we all learn in-demand business skills relevant to the career you want.
Into an interception, Colorado secures their spot in the top 25. That was a hard-fought, well-deserved win there. They're about to get a little bit more land, but when we take a look at the zoomed-out map, the Buffaloes' territory compared to Arizona State, compared to Hawaii, even compared to someone like Illinois or Michigan State, it just isn't as much, especially from being out west. But like I said, that's kind of how you want to play it. Clearly, for teams like UConn, avoiding a bunch of games has been very beneficial. And by attacking Rutgers here, they could have just gotten themselves into a lot of trouble. I never thought I'd see the day where both of these teams were making it so far into imperialism. And I don't know what's up with all these overtime games, but we have enough. The Huskies are going to have the ball first here, where they're going to get themselves almost 20 yards. It was a very, very good start to their drive. And then on 2nd and goal, there were just too many open players. As for Rutgers, they almost threw a pick on their first play. And that is clearly something that they're going to want to avoid, which they've clearly done here as they're already in the end zone. Nobody is ever aggressive, though. They're all just kicking their extra points. So we have gotten ourselves to double OT. That run, though, did not go anywhere, which is not a good start for the Scarlet Knights, and it keeps getting worse. If UConn doesn't go with man coverage on 3rd and 14, which did not work for them when they did in overtime 1, they're going to get the stop, especially with that weird decision to run the football. This field goal is going to put them up by 3, but UConn wins with the tutty. They will most likely do the same thing now. There's just no aggression or anything. They're playing it safe now that they know they can. This is the same play calling Rutgers has. So they better not decide to go with an option run on 3rd down. If they did that, it would literally be the exact same play calling, but they did run it and it worked. It just seems like these two coaches are running the same game plan, which is obviously something you don't want to see. On 3rd and 14, they really just ran it 3 times. What is wrong with the computer AI in this game? I understand the two teams that are playing right now, but this has been a painful watch, and it gets worse. UConn has somehow missed such a short field goal, they ruined their chance of tying it up. They're eliminated. And I decided to make this part of the map a little bit more colorful, because most of the teams up here would have all had a gray background if I did. There is zero chance that this combo of teams has ever made it this far. At least in that region, it has been a chaotic imperialism. And this next matchup between rivals Colorado State State and Colorado should be super entertaining too. I remember the first year Deion Sanders was coaching in Colorado, the Rocky Mountain Showdown was incredibly entertaining. And I wish I could say this one was the same way, but it was an easy win for the Buffaloes. Caden Salter threw for over 400 passing yards, 5 touchdowns in a 52-22 win. So that gets rid of one of the big green territories that we were currently seeing on the map. It replaces it with gold. And I know it's not the same tint as what Arizona State has, or even Pitt's now that we changed them over to gold, but that's probably the most dominant color on this map. Orange and green are close second and third though. SMU is none of those colors. But if they end up getting Hawaii here, I'm gonna be really sad. I know Hawaii's probably not gonna make it all the way to the end, but I'm just rooting for it anyway. They have gotten Arkansas State. They're going in a different direction than Hawaii, and they're playing at the stadium with the waterfalls. As you can see them right there, they look incredible in this game. But Arkansas State has not looked as incredible as they just dropped the easiest drag route of all time. It's just embarrassing stuff at this point. They're probably about to take a sack. Jalen Raynor goes down. And so the Mustangs close it out, getting themselves another win. The number of small schools that are still left standing continues to just dwindle down. There's not too many left on the wheel, and Ohio State is up. The Buckeyes have waited a very long time to expand, which is concerning, especially because they're immediately targeting Pitt. If the Buckeyes end up running the Northeast region, all of those small schools there are in trouble. And you know, if it didn't take the Panthers 4 quarters to get on the board, they might have been able to beat the Buckeyes, but they were just bad. It was so frustrating to see like a 13-0 game in the third quarter where Pitt just could not score. If their offense showed up, they had a winnable chance against Ohio State, which you don't always get. That was when things might continue to get worse. We have UMass getting landed on. And I was originally just going to allow them to take this small state right here, but the arrow clearly points onto Rutgers territory. It's really nice though. The Scarlet Knights continue to have an opportunity to shine. And that is exactly what they did. 38-16. No close matchup here. Just like that.